It's that time of the week when former football and sports stars share their stories. It happens all right here, right now, on Thursday Night Tailgate. With your hosts, Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari. Guys, have some fun. Enjoy the guests. Take it away.
Hey, thank you, Joe. Good evening, everybody. Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari here with you tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate, your home for interviews and conversations with the greatest players in the history of the NFL, and your home for the NFL Alumni Association and the Gridiron Greats. TNT is brought to you by the great folks over at Kyvan Foods, Coastal Orthopedics, the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, and the French Lick Resort. Tonight, Bob and I, we're excited to kick off the new NFL season with you for 32 teams, right? Hope springs eternal right now. Our announcer, Joe LaGenusa, he believes the Rams are going to go 9-7 this year, and their return to L.A., I think 6-10 is more likely. You heard Tony Collins last week predicted the Patriots are going to go 3-1 under Jimmy Garoppolo and then 12-0 under Tom Brady, so they're going to finish the year 15-1. So as you can tell, both Joe and Tony have issues. Bob and I, we're going to talk more about, who's going to do what and, when we go through our predictions, we're going to do that here for you in just a few minutes. But, we got a great show in store for you, all night tonight for the 2 hours that we're going to be with you. Our first guest tonight is going to be former Browns and Vikings defensive back Felix Wright. He'll join us about 15 minutes from now. At the bottom of the hour, Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins is going to join us just like he does every single week here on TNT, and we'll go through our five-star picks of the week. Following Tony, we'll be joined by the executive director of the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, Jewell, and we always have so much fun when Ann joins us. Now, she's fighting some allergies tonight, so she might be a little bit off her game, but we appreciate the fact that she's going to tape an aspirin to it and play hurt like, Bob and I do from time to time. We're all sort of day-to-day, but Ann is kind enough to fight through it with us, so we look forward to catching up with her a little bit later in this hour. We'll kick off hour number 2 with former Oregon and Atlanta Falcons quarterback Chris Miller. And then we'll round out the show with former Wisconsin and Green Bay Packers offensive lineman Bill Ferrario. So we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. So sit back, relax, and let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next couple of hours. Let's start by bringing in my co-host, Mr. Bob-Lazzari. Bob, how are you tonight, my friend?
Christopher, we do play hurt, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Right now, man. Let me tell you.
Is that right? You got a back right now?
Yeah, it was out power walking this afternoon, and man, it's a combination of arthritis, discs, you name it, Chris. I'm paying for everything I did 30 years ago, but it's like somebody stabbing me in the back right now. But I called the number and we talk football, and here we are.
And here we are, and I appreciate you doing so, my friend. But, Bob, as we look ahead a couple of weeks to our 5-year anniversary special and our Guest Hall of Fame inductions, we got another little milestone to celebrate tonight. As I was sort of looking back over everything, tonight is our 250th live show, which is a lot of shows when you sit back and think about the sheer number of the shows that we've done together.
It is amazing, isn't it, Chris? And I've done so many in different sports and everything. It's way past 1,000, and then I guess after you do so many, but 250 shows of a weekly show without busting our own bubble. It's a pretty good accomplishment, and it's been a pleasure being with you this time. And hey, if we could do another 250, Chris, we're doing something. So
yeah, exactly right.
Let's look forward to doing that.
That's right, to another 250, and our thanks again as well to Angelo Kane, who was a part of that as well. But 250 shows, yeah, looking forward to 250 more, my friend. Bob, I wanted to get one quick story, and then we want to look ahead to the 2016 season and get your picks. Which as everyone knows who listens to this show, anytime Bob-Lazzari picks it, it's money. Go to the bank. So if you want to enhance your bank account, listen to Bob and write down the winners, and then get out to Vegas or call up your local bookie, because Bob is right so often and such a high percentage of the time. So we look forward to getting to those picks here in just a little bit. But Bob, last week we talked about Shaun Hill and how favorably his career numbers compared to Teddy Bridgewater's, and we also talked about how the Vikings finished 11-5 last season, and really should have defeated the Seattle Seahawks and moved on to at least the divisional round of the playoffs if it wasn't for a fluke missed field goal. So all with an offense that ranked 31st in the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns. So Shaun Hill should have easily been able to, slide in and do as well as Teddy Bridgewater, at least put up the same numbers. But, since last week, right, the big news trade that they pulled off with the Eagles for Sam Bradford, a guy who was, really only renting space as the Eagles starting quarterback until number 2 overall pick Carson Wentz was ready to take over, which apparently is now going to be this Sunday when he gets his first start at home against Cleveland. So, Bob, the Eagles got a first-round pick and a conditional fourth-round pick, which could be as high as a second-round pick based on how well Sam Bradford performs this year. Wanted to get your thoughts. What do you think of the trade, and did the Vikings overpay for Bradford?
Well, Chris, like you said, when we talked about this last week, I would have been very happy with Shaun Hill, a guy that was familiar with the offense, a guy, if you looked at his numbers when he had the chance to play, he was decent. He would have been at least a good game manager. All I can think is, Chris, that they've got a phone call. We knew Bradford's time in Philly was short. It was not a good marriage there, and it was a kind of a thing that I really thought as the week went on. I said, okay, it looks like Hill. They're getting close to the first game here, and I said Hill is going to be their man, and I think they'll do okay. But I guess they figured, okay, Bradford was available. It must have been Norv Turner's decision that this guy, Shaun Hill's age might have come up, Chris. I don't know. But Norv Turner probably thought Bradford is the type of guy that he kind of likes. I mean, the guy he tries to stay away. He's pretty good as far as staying away from mistakes. His completion percentage is pretty good. Again, keeping him healthy, it might be a problem there. And learning the offense so quickly, a Norv Turner offense, Chris, sometimes can be a little crazy. So, again, I think I was a little shocked. Did they give up a little bit too much? When you think about that they had Shaun Hill there already, and what they might give up and what that might turn into, as you alluded to, I think they might have. But Bradford is gonna be thrown into the fire pretty quick here, Chris. And to answer your question, I was a little shocked and feel sorry a little bit for Shaun Hill, because I thought he deserved a shot and would have done okay, and that's a guy that's very familiar with the offense. So we'll see if this learning curve affects Bradford in a negative fashion here.
Mm-hmm. And Bob, sort of based on the temperament of Eagles fans, we all know how tough the Eagles fans can be, on their teams. Do you think they can be patient with a Carson Wentz and let him develop, or do you think, if he goes out and struggles a bit in the first couple of weeks, he's going to end up getting hammered?
Good question. We always talk about Philly fans, Eagle fans, Philadelphia, the Flyer fans. Chris, they're brutal. I mean, I've been down there. I've been down to the Vet. I've been down to the Spectrum. I mean, I've been sitting with these people, and they do boo Santa Claus, and even guys holier than Santa Claus. So, but Carson Wentz, I think they are. I think Philly fans are smart enough to know, Chris, that it's a win now league and everything, but a guy like that is going to need at least a year to probably get his feet wet. He might take his bumps, but I think Philly fans probably can realize that there's a plan in place. I think everything else, with Bradford and everything up in the air of who should quarterback the team, who they were going to draft. You remember we were going back and forth. Who should they draft? And now everything is in place. So they have to be a little patient. I know it's not in their mentality, but they have to be a little patient. Let it develop. And we'll see how it goes. That division, Chris, could be up in the air. So
yes,
you never know. If this guy, if he's as advertised, they can be competitive right away. So I think there'll be excitement, and a little bit of, shall we say, a little bit of, on the part of Philly fans, they're not patient. So there's going to be impatience and excitement. I'm going to say that the team does okay with them.
All right, well, you're right. I think this division is up for grabs. We'll talk about more about that in a minute. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the whole thing plays out. So I'm certainly intrigued. But it'll be interesting to see how the Philly fans deal with it as well. All right, everyone, like we do here every week on Thursday Night Tailgate, we want to send out a big hello and an even bigger thank you to our military personnel listening in around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network. We cannot thank you enough for doing what you do every day to protect all of us in our way of life. For everyone else listening in, we thank you as well, and we hope you'll join us in thanking our brave men and women serving in our military. If you happen to see any of our servicemen and women in your daily life, whether you're in the grocery store, at the airport, out and about, at a restaurant, whatever you're doing, please stop for a moment and tell them thank you. They are our true heroes. We also want to thank our veterans for your service and the sacrifices that you and your families have made for us over the years. Big thank you as well to Sean Cruz and all the great folks over at the Armed Forces Radio Network. It is such an honor for us to have Thursday Night Tailgate be a part of your network. You can find our show by going to armedforcesradionetwork.org. TNT is brought to you by the great folks over at Kyvan Foods, owned and operated by our good friend and former Bengals and Falcons tight end and TNT Hall of Famer Reggie Kelly. Folks, if you want to be king of the grill for the remainder of this summer, it is a must that you use Kyvan Sweet Barbecue Sauce, ranked number 15 in the world by Barbecue Superstars. This barbecue sauce is a must for the big games, for your tailgating needs now. It's available at select Walmarts and Krogers throughout the eastern half of the country. 4 locations, online orders, and recipes. Check out their website at Kyvan82.com. And again, Kyvan is spelled K-Y-V-A-N. And if your local Walmart doesn't carry the Kyvan Sweet Barbecue Sauce, well, request it. I'm sure they'll be happy to add it to their shelves for you. TNT is also sponsored by Dr. Peter Candelora and the great folks over at Coastal Orthopedics. Folks, if you're dealing with joint pain, wherever it is in your body, right, your shoulders, your elbows, your knees, your hips, your feet, don't just live with it. Do what the gridiron greats do to get relief, and that is contact Coastal Orthopedics. They can get you back to enjoying life. For more information, check them out on bone-dr.com. Baseball, right? We're in the stretch run now, and if you love the game and you're looking for a great family late summer vacation destination, you're going to love the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. They were recently welcomed into the TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence Hall of Fame. TripAdvisor grants that to businesses that have won the Certificate of Excellence 5 years in a row. The museum is a very cool experience for everyone in your family because you get to walk their live production line. You get to see the bats being manufactured right there in front of you. The Ripley's Believe It or Not exhibit is still there. They've got some bizarre baseball treasures that you get to check out. And please, if you go, don't miss the Bat Vault where you can actually hold game-used bats from so many of the game's greatest players, like guys like Hank Aaron, Ted Williams, my hero growing up, Willie Stargell. To find out more information about the museum and to book your visit, go to sluggermuseum.com. And also, don't forget to check out our friends at the French Lick Resort. What a fantastic place to stay and play golf, or simply just relax and enjoy yourselves. What a fantastic setting, right? 2 championship golf courses, one designed by Pete Dye, the other by Donald Ross. The Pete Dye designed course hosted last year's Senior PGA Championship, and they just hosted the LPGA Legends Championship. The Donald Ross designed course was the site of Walter Hagen's PGA Championship back in 1924. They got a great spot. And, oh, by the way, my friends, a casino on the property as well. To find out more information to book your stay, go to FrenchLick.com. All right, Bob, we've got Felix Wright hanging on the line. We're going to get to Felix here in just a couple of minutes. Before we do, Bob, I wanted to quickly go through and get your season picks. Who do you think the division winners are going to be? Who do you got going to the Super Bowl? That sort of thing. So let's go down the divisions in the conferences. First, let's start off with the AFC East, Bob. Who do you like in the AFC East this year?
Well, Chris, it's still the Patriots division to lose. I don't think anybody is going. They're going to be at least, I think, 11-5. And a team like the Jets, I think you're talking 500. And the other teams are probably going to be to kind of knock each other off, Chris. So that's a New England and everything else 500 kind of division.
I agree. I'm with you, Bob. I think until someone proves that they can beat the Patriots, I'm sticking with them as well. Let's move over to the AFC North. Who do you got in the AFC North?
Well, I like your Steelers, Chris. I do. I like Roethlisberger. I don't want to jinx them, but I think once things get going, Bell comes back, and I think this team is going to be incredibly good this year. And you may have a team like the Bengals, maybe a little bit disappointing, and the Ravens. The Ravens are another, I think, about a 500 team. But Steelers, to me, Chris, the class of that division.
I appreciate you saying that, Bob. I think they're well. I think they could stumble out of the gate a little bit until Bell gets back and some other guys get healthy. They've got some guys nicked up. Cam Hayward is nicked up on the defensive line. Their offensive line's a little bit nicked up. Good to see DeCastro get his contract signed. But I think they could struggle a little bit at the beginning, but I think they come on and they run away with this division. But I think the Bengals and Ravens may be the wild card teams that come out in the AFC. But I like the Steelers to win as well. How about in the AFC South, Bob?
Oh, South, Chris, that's one of those divisions. I think the class of it is the Colts and the Texans. I mean, you could almost flip a coin. I've been looking at both of their schedules. I mean, they both can get off to good starts, Chris, and I think both teams have the ability to at least win 10 games. So you're going to see either one of those teams, I think, at the top. Jacksonville, teams like Tennessee are going to be fading toward the end of the year. So, let's just say that the Colts or Texans will win that division, and the other two are 500 teams or less.
Interesting. And Bob, I'm going out on a limb. I like the Jags. I think the Jags take a huge step forward this year. Bortles is coming along well. Allen Robinson proven to be one of the best wide receivers in the game. They added Kelvin Beachum from the Steelers at tackle, Chris Ivory at running back, Malik Jackson as a defensive tackle. Andrew Luck is going to have to prove it to me again, and the Colts have no running game to speak of. Defense okay, but I don't the Colts don't excite me. Texans, Brock Osweiler has to show me that those 7 games that he played last year with what that sample size was, and can he build on that? J.J. Watt is a little nicked up right now. So I'll tell you, Bob, I'm going out on the limb. I think the Jags are going to be good this year. I think they're going to get even better over the next few years. Watch out for the Jaguars in the next couple of years. But I'm taking the Jags in the AFC South. How about the AFC West, Bob?
West, a lot of people like the Raiders, Chris. This is a team, as you talked about, that can be very good. Jack Del Rio, it seems like everybody likes him. And everybody's saying this Amari Cooper is probably either one of the 2 or 3 best receivers in the league. So I think they're going to be a 10-win team. But Kansas City is going to be right there, too. That's another 10-win team. And, they start right away with 2 out of 3 games at home, Chris. And so I still think Denver's going to be good. Maybe nothing like last year. They may just be a 9-7, 10-16. It's a very competitive division, Chris. I just don't see any room for the Chargers to win that many with 3 other good teams. So, I'm going to go out and say the Raiders win that division, and the Raiders-Chiefs neck and neck with the Broncos right there. That might be one of those divisions where wild card comes out. It's going to be wild. That division is up for grabs too.
I like Kansas City, and I like that defense. I like them to win the division, though. I'm with you, Bob. I like the Raiders. I like what they're doing with their young nucleus of talent. Derek Carr, you mentioned Amari Cooper, Latavius Murray at running back. Don't sleep on DeAndre Washington at backup running back. I think he could be really good rookie out of Texas Tech. I like him to do some damage this year as well, and we all know about Khalil Mack at defensive end. That kid's a monster. So the Raiders are a team on the come. They may be about a year away from really coming into their own, but I think it's going to be a very crazy division. Denver, depending on how well Simeon plays and develops this year, they could be right in the mix as well. So I'm with you. I'm going to take Kansas City to win the division, but I think the Raiders are going to be nipping at their heels. They also could be a wild card team this year. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. So Bob, let's summarize. We both like the Patriots. We both like the Steelers. You like the Colts and Texans in the South. I like Jacksonville. We both like the Raiders and Kansas City in the West. So Bob, going through the AFC, who are your 2 wild card teams, and then who comes out of there and represents the AFC in the Super Bowl?
You may see a team like Oakland as a wild card, Chris, and a team. That's to pair a team with Oakland. It could be one of those teams like the Texans or something. So maybe those are 2 wild cards. Of course, I do like New England and Pittsburgh. And when it's all said and done, Chris, I think you're going to see the Steelers and Patriots, and I'm going to say the Patriots are actually going to take a little bit step back, and the Steelers will go to the dance.
There you go, my friend. I appreciate you. And of course, I'm going to be a bit of a I'm going to be a bit of a homer and say the same thing. My wild card is like the Patriots, Steelers, Jaguars, and Chiefs as my divisional winners. I think the Bengals and the Raiders are my wild card teams. I think it is the Steelers and the Patriots that go to the championship game, and I'm going to be a homer and take my boys to go to the Super Bowl. We'll get to our NFC picks a little bit later on in the show, so stick around with us there. We'll tell you who's coming out of the NFC towards the tail end of the show, and we'll tell you who's going to win the Super Bowl as well. In the meantime, now joining us on the Kaiven Foods guest line is our first guest of the night, Felix Wright. Let me give you some background on Felix. He's from Carthage, Missouri, which is in the southwestern part of the state, not far from Springfield. Played his college ball at Drake University. He was an undrafted free agent signed originally by the Hamilton Tiger Cats up in the CFL. He played for Hamilton from 1982 to 1984, helping them to the Grey Cup Finals in 84 with a magnificent performance in the Eastern Conference Finals, which we'll talk more about here in a moment. He was a CFL All-Star in 83 and 84, came back to the NFL in 85, playing for the Browns until 1990 before moving over to the Vikings in 91 and 92 and finishing his career with the Chiefs in 93. He led the league in interceptions in 1989 with 9. Over the course of his NFL career, he had 34 interceptions, 2 of which he returned for touchdowns, and 2 of those interceptions and 1 of those touchdowns came at the expense of our good friend and TNT Hall of Famer Jim Everett on a Monday night game against the Rams, earning Felix the nickname Mr. Monday Night, and I hope Jim is listening. If he's not, I'm sure to remind him about this next week when he joins us on the show. But we are excited to have Felix with us tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Felix, Chris and Bob here. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, I appreciate the invite and enjoying my evening back here in Carthage, Missouri currently.
Ah, good for you.
Yeah.
So, Felix, I tweeted this, or no, I mean, I texted this to you, but just so you know, former Rams quarterback Jim Everett, great friend of the show. He's in our guest Hall of Fame. He, like I say, he's going to be joining us again next week, which is going to be his 14th appearance with us on the show. He's also in our fantasy football league, and no one talks more trash than Jimmy does. So when I saw that you picked him off twice in a game in 87, one of which was a pick six, I was overcome with excitement, making sure to put that out over social media. I was particularly tickled to see the nickname you got as at Jimmy's expense, Mr. Monday Night, for that performance. But take us back to that night, Felix. What do you remember about that game?
Well, you know what? I have to give Jim a big thank you, because that was the game that catapulted me into the starting lineup for the rest of my career. I remember best about that game is that it was a game that we had came off the strike, and they had, that was we held out a couple of weeks. I think we played the first week, and then we held out for the next 3 or 4 weeks, and we came back in for that game. I think it was in October, and it was a very stressful time for a lot of the ball players, and we were just ready to get back on the field. And, going into that training camp, I think that was my third season. And, just kind of on the cusp of, of splitting time as far as just splitting time with other safeties, and not a clear-cut starter. And going into that game, this is as in any game, but especially on the nationally televised games, you always want to make, as a ball player, you always want to make a play so you can kind of get your name out there. All your family and people back home are watching, people all over the country are watching. And if you make things happen, that put your name out there, which will help you in other things, outside of the football field. And so I was fortunate that evening to be put in the game, with the first interception where they were in the end zone. I think he threw, it was a down and out. The ball kind of went up in the air. I came under him. Well, I think I went 68, 70 yards with that. Didn't score. And then turned around the next series. I think tried to throw it deep down and in, and I intercepted, took it in for the score. And from that game on, I've been in the line. I was in the lineup for the remaining of my career, which was an awesome thing. But I like Jim. Jim's a cool guy. We've talked here and there. I mean, it's been a while. Been retired for a little while, but that game, like I said, was awesome. It kept us in the winners bracket, and actually, our replacement players that came in and replaced us during that time we were off, won every game but one. So they didn't put us, we were still in pretty good position to go on into the playoffs, and obviously, go up against Denver in the championship game there.
Right. Oh, thank you for sharing that story, Felix. That's fantastic. I'll be sure to remind him about that play next week. But let's go back to your time after college, because your story, Felix, is really amazing. You were undrafted, and you had really, as I was reading the story, really given up on playing professionally. You were a history and PE teacher up in Joplin, Missouri. Talk about your journey from being a teacher, and then how you were able to get some tryouts, and ultimately you ended up landing up in the CFL with the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Well, yeah, coming out of Carthage, got offered a scholarship to play Drake University. Pretty good, decent student. Graduated in 4 years, and for whatever reason, I guess we were a Division I school. We were playing Big 12 teams and Missouri Valley teams, and pretty good teams. And I don't know, we just didn't get the opportunity. As a lot of maybe some of the other big D1 schools got, to where we had a lot of scouts come around, and I think at that time and I don't know if any university does this, but we had conditioning and things like that. We really didn't work on our speed or anything like that. It was just something they figured that we played football and good football, and we had enough speed to make it happen, so we really didn't work on it. But I think one of the things that I was lacking was probably my speed work, and when they come by in the spring in your junior year, if you don't really run well, they probably aren't going to get an opportunity, and I think maybe that's what happened. So I wasn't given an opportunity out of Drake University to even go to a tryout camp or a workout camp, which I thought that I played well enough to afford that, because I don't remember how many interceptions I had through my career, but I know my last year I think I had 6 to 8 interceptions, so I thought I did enough to maybe afford me an opportunity. But I got one letter from an agent. His name is Elliot Lehman out of Philadelphia. Sent me a letter that says, I'm an agent. I'd like to, possibly represent you if you're interested. And what I did is I figured, agents usually, if they want your services, they're usually calling you up and chasing you around on campus, and that wasn't happening. So I never called him, and he never called me. So I basically put the letter up with my school books, and after I graduated, I had to kind of decide what I wanted to do if I didn't get the opportunity. So I went and at school as a history and physical education, and I wanted to be a coach. I had an uncle that was a coach, and I always said if I didn't get an opportunity to play at the next level, I'd like to go into coaching and maybe help the younger athletes maybe get to the college level, maybe possibly get a scholarship and help them, progress in their athletic ability and also education. So I went back and applied at a few schools, and I got a job at Joplin, Missouri. They actually at that time had 2 high schools, Joplin Memorial and Joplin Parkwood. And I got a job at Joplin Memorial, and they were actually a rival of Carthage, back in the day when we used to play in basketball. And so what I did is I got a teaching job, as well as I was a football coach, basketball, and also I did track. And I guess I was so young at the time. I was only 4 years older than the seniors, because I had just graduated with the job. So I was young enough to where when I would go out and talk with my athletes, the defense that I work with, whatever they did as far as athletic wise and working out and getting ready for the season, I was doing it with them. So I was staying in pretty good shape. And I remember halfway through the season, we were kind of going through some drills. And, so one of my defensive backs wasn't doing the proper feet work that I thought he should be doing. So I had went out and kind of just, described, okay, this is how I want you to do it. This is the way it should be done. And so, probably, half the receivers out there, they want to show the coach up, and I was shutting them down. So it was pretty funny, but I got my point across, and the kids learned from it, and actually became pretty good ball players, after that. But we went in after that practice, and the coaches, because a lot of the coaches played at they played college football at Missouri Southern and Pittsburgh State here, which is big back here in Southwest Missouri. And they said, that is amazing. You shouldn't be here, Felix. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? They said, you should be playing at the next level. And I'm like, well, come on. I may have shut down these guys, but they're high school. No big deal. I played college, started as a college player, and they said, well, you should be playing at the next level. We think you should be. And I'm like, well, it's kind of late for that. Well, what happened is that it triggered me thinking about it again, because I'd actually kind of put it out of my mind about playing professional ball. But what I did is, when I left out of there, they got me to thinking, and I went home because I still lived at home with my parents, and I came home and asked my mom. I said, Mom, do you have my school books? I need to find a letter that an agent sent me. I want to look it up and see if he's still in the agent business, because I want to give him a call. So she went up in the I think it was the attic, and she found my college school books, and there that letter was from Elliot Lineman in Philadelphia. I gave him a call, and I said, hey, Elliot, this is Felix Wright, and I never got a call from you. And he said, well, he said, I sent you the letter for you to call me, but you never did. And I was like, well, I'm calling you now. And I says, I was out working out today. I'm in pretty good shape. I wanted to see if you could get me a tryout somewhere or work, anywhere. And I says, and if I was fortunate to get an opportunity, that would help kind of relax my mind, and I'd know it'd be over for good. Or if I wouldn't get the opportunity, then I can't say that I did try. So he said, hey, I'll do what I can do, and I'd love to do it. And so he made some calls and called me back the next day, and he says, well, I got some great news and I got some bad news. And I said, well, wow, that doesn't make any sense. He says, well, I'll tell you the good news first. He says, I got you 2 tryouts. And he says, the bad news is they're both on the same day. So you're gonna have to decide which one you want to go to, because you're gonna have to pay for the trip.
Wow.
So it was either I was in Missouri here at Carthage, so I either had to decide if I wanted to go up and try out for the Detroit Lions or the Houston Oilers. And so Houston was much closer. It was going to cost less money, and on the school teacher's salary, I had to choose the cheaper place to go. So I asked my uncle, which is my uncle Tinker, which is one of my oldest uncles, and I asked him to take the that Friday off, and I got to work out on Saturday. Would you help drive me down there, so I can kind of focus and get my mind right for this workout? And he said, absolutely. So I had about 2 weeks to get ready mentally and physically. I was already ready, because I'd been working out and working on my speed and working on my strength, and I had a whole year to work out to where I didn't have any physical contact. It felt really good. So I went down there. We went down there on Friday, and what we did is they wanted us to come by the facility on Friday to check in and make sure we were going to be there for our workout on Saturday. And I remember distinctly when we got there on Friday, there was about 300 people there on the field, and I was like, what the heck? 300 people on the field. I says, this is like a meat market here. I says, is there really an opportunity for really get a legitimate shot? And I became kind of really disgruntled, and I just turned around and looked at my uncle and said, hey, I think this is a waste of time. We just need to get out of here and go back home. And he had said, and this was a famous quote, he says, hey, I took the day off. I'm losing money. You're going to work out. so I said, okay. I was prepared to take it on back to the house in Missouri. And I said, okay. I'll work out, but, I think it's a waste of time. Because, as I found out, they had about 300 guys there on Friday, and they had another 300 guys that was coming on Saturday. So, it was truly a meat market, a ton of guys, and I'm like, well, how are you going to get this many people through running, through catching, to really see if they got any serious talent or not? So I showed up on Saturday. I, ran well. I actually ran on grass. It was a low 4, high forward 4, and my second one was like a 4.51. So a tremendous improvement from my college days of the 40-yard dash that I ran. And then, they threw us a few balls. We were out there probably for 45 minutes, and he blew the whistle and called the other 300 guys that were, that worked out yesterday. Some of them didn't show up, but they probably weren't going to be there. But he brought us all together, and they said we want to thank you for coming and working out and taking up your precious time and working out. And we've decided on 3 people that we're going to offer contracts to, and I was the second name picked. Couldn't believe it. It was pretty wild.
Wow.
So 3 out of about 600 people, and I guess I showed enough and enough speed and caught the ball well enough to where it afforded me an opportunity to sign on the spot. So I came back the next day, signed a contract, a 2-year deal with the Houston Oilers, and started working with Kenny Houston, who's the Hall of Fame safety.
Yes.
Corner. Started working with him in the off season, and worked out real well. In fact, the crazy thing is that I think I had my best training camp of my whole career was that year, because I was in the best shape I've ever been, and just got caught up in the politics to where they had some draft picks that they needed to stick with, and they let me go after the third preseason game, which was just amazing. But I was happy that I even got the opportunity. But I knew that I had, because I knew that I had played well, and I just couldn't believe that that I didn't make that team, because of even Kenny Houston came up to me and said, I know we're making a mistake, but it's not my decision. It's the head coach's decision. But you keep your head up, because I think you're going to be playing somewhere. I'm like, all right. So I got let go. And I came back to Carthage, Missouri, and the next day the Hamilton Tiger Cats called me up and said, hey, we saw you playing in camp. We saw you playing games. We don't know why they let you go, but you can come up and play for us right now. And I just said, I don't know anything about Canada or about the rules, or anything like that, but I'm willing to give it a shot. I don't have anywhere else to go, because the week before I had to resign from school, because they gave me a deadline of August 1st that I needed to make a decision if I was going to come back, if I got released early, or if I was still on the team. Then I had to resign so they could hire another coach to come in and coach the team. Well, I resigned from that, so I basically went back to Carthage with no job. And so I got back. I think I got back on that Sunday, because the game was on Saturday. Got back to Carthage on Sunday. Got the call. Flew up flew into Toronto, and and then they drove me over to on Monday evening, and then signed my contracts on Tuesday. I worked out on that Tuesday. I got getting through my physical and all that. Worked out that evening, and then Wednesday we traveled out to Edmonton, Alberta, to play the Edmonton Eskimos for a Thursday night game. And I go from a tryout to playing really well in Houston, thinking I'm going to make it. Got released. And in less than a couple of days, I'm on a plane to Canada, and I'm in the starting lineup against the Edmonton Eskimos, and the starting quarterback's Warren Moon.
Wow.
So, yeah, so a lot had changed in that little bit of time, especially in those 2 or 3 days. So that Thursday night, so Warren looks out there at me and said, "Oh, we got a new guy out there that doesn't really understand the game. We're going to pick on him." And I think the first 10 passes were at me. And he was about 500 there, and then on the 10th pass he threw, I stepped in front of it and won about 80 yards. And that was kind of the start of my career. That was kind of the start of my career. And it's kind of Warren. We haven't really talked about it much because you didn't really like talking about it. But every game I've played against Warren, I've intercepted the ball from him.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty wild.
That's something to tell the grandkids. Holy smokes!
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Against a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, against a Hall of Famer. So that was in 1982, and so I just signed a 1-year deal with them to play actually the last 6 games, and so I played well enough to where they said, "Hey, we want to offer you a 2-year deal," and I said, "Sure, absolutely. I don't have a job anywhere else to go back to, so I'd love to come back." And so in 83 and 84, I made the All-Star team, which is equivalent to the Pro Bowl in the NFL, and I think I had 8 interceptions in 83, and in 84 I think I had like 10 to 12, including the playoffs, and we ended up going to the championship and playing in the Grey Cup, which was an awesome deal, and the funny thing about it is that there were some scouts there that was there to watch our quarterback, which was our quarterback was Dieter Brock, and they were there to watch him, and while they were there watching him, I had the 4 interceptions in the one game in the game against Toronto in the championship game to put us in the Grey Cup. Got all 4 of my interceptions from a guy named Congridge Holloway from the University of Tennessee. You guys remember him?
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was a big shot back then. Him and J.C. Watts back in the day used to play for the Ottawa Rough Riders.
Right.
Tommy Clements was the original quarterback for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and then we actually traded with Winnipeg to get Dieter over, and we actually traded Tommy Clements to Winnipeg, and that's who we ended up meeting in the Grey Cup. So,
wow.
So made the All-Star team, and then after they came up to watch Dieter and saw me with the 4 interceptions. I had about 6 teams that were offering me contracts to come back to the league. I loved Canada and I hated to leave, but they couldn't compete money wise that the NFL teams were offering me. So I opted to leave, and Cleveland kind of outbid everybody. So I figured at the time, if they're outbidding everybody, the other ones are going to have the most faith in me. So, and that was Marty Schottenheimer.
Right.
He was in my ear and said, "Hey, if you do this, everything should be okay." And I came in and I was ready to go and camp in 1985, and it was all history from there. So, I came in '85 and played the nickel back. I actually played corner when I actually came into the league. I was corner and played. I was kind of a multi-purpose guy. I played corner, also played safety. I could play any position. And then, did the same thing. And then we did the same thing in '86, and then '87. It was, it's one of those deals where you got to kind of determine what you're going to do. Are you going to be in the league for a while, or are you going to be, a guy that kind of plays special teams? And like I said, that game kind of catapulted me into the starting position. So I have to thank Jim for that.
That's a great story. Wow.
And the stories from that with the drive, the fumble, and all the other games.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all great stuff, Felix. I mean, we have so many questions that we'd love to get through with you. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough time tonight. I hope you'll come back and join us again sometime. I know before we let you go, I know you're doing some great things. Talk about the Cayman Islands Classic and what you're doing with that great event.
Yes, my brother Joseph Wright is he also played college basketball at Kansas State. He was Kansas State Wildcat, and he played basketball overseas for 16 years. And what he's been doing since he's retired, he stayed focused into basketball. He loves the game of basketball. He's actually got 2 sons that are very good that will probably be going to play big time and hopefully, possibly play at the next level. But he's seen all these, holiday tournaments, in Maui and in the Bahamas, and he decided that he had a buddy that he played with in Mexico. And they kind of put a tournament together to where over in the Cayman Islands, because that's actually where his buddy is from. And so they talked with the government and they put it together. They've been working on this thing for about 3 or 4 years now, and it's finally come to fruition. Next 2007, November 2017, we're going to kick it off. They got all 8 teams for the tournament in 2017, and I think they got over half of the teams for the 2018. So they're well on their way, and I'm on the board, so I help them make some decisions, and I got a buddy, Alan Wilson, who's a guy that I went to Drake with university with. That's on our board, and I'm real excited about it and looking forward to it, and we hope that we can get as many people over there from the States to kind of see Cayman Islands and also see a great basketball tournament as well. So.
Nah, that's fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
Felix, thank you so much for taking the opportunity and taking the time, to come on our show. And it's been a privilege having you. Like I say, so many things that Bob and I wanted to get into with you. Unfortunately, just not enough time tonight. We hope you'll come back and join us and do it again sometime.
Anytime. You just let me know.
I appreciate it, Felix. All the best to you and your family. We look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
That is Felix Wright, former Vikings and Browns defensive back. And Bob, great stories, and we just, barely scratched the surface of his career. And like I say, unfortunately, just not enough time to get through everything with Felix tonight. But a wonderful player and a wonderful story for how he went from, so it's essentially the Kurt Warner story, right? Guys, teacher versus a grocery store, but from out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden, has this fantastic career. What a great player, and hopefully we get to have him back soon.
Yeah, he's led the league in picks one year with 9, Chris, and
right.
He mentioned one of his brothers, an incredible athlete, and little did people know he had another brother, Charles, who was drafted in the NFL and played a couple years for St. Louis, Dallas, and Tampa. So what a family, what a talented family, and we'll get more into that next time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we've got our next 2 guests hanging on the line. We want to get through with Tony Collins and get through our 5-star picks of the week, and then we'll get to Jewell, the executive director from the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. But now joining us on the Kaiven Foods guest line is our good friend Tony Collins. Hey, Tony, how are you tonight?
Doing fantastic. How you guys doing?
Hey, Tony.
We're doing really well. So, Tony, are you ready to kick off the new NFL season with our picks? Last year officially over now. That was back then. That's history. Now we got a whole new season.
I have butterflies this morning, man, thinking about the new season. Just like
Tony was ready
to play. So I'm ready, baby. I'm ready.
He was ready in February, Chris.
That's right. So, Tony, we got our 5-star picks of the week. Our first game tonight that we're going to pick is the one that's going on as we speak. It's a repeat of last year's Super Bowl, the Carolina Panthers at the Denver Broncos. The Panthers are a 3-point road favorite. Tony, can Carolina get a little bit of revenge for what happened to them last year in the Super Bowl?
I think the Panthers will get revenge tonight. I like Cam. I like the big receiver that came back this year. I think he's got some more targets. Yeah, Benjamin's back this year. I'm just gonna go with I'm going with the Panthers tonight. It'll be a close game because Broncos got a great defense like they always have. I'm kind of shaky on their quarterback right now. He hasn't had a NFL start, so he's going to be pretty nervous tonight. And Panthers got a good defense too, so they're going to put a little pressure on him. So I'm going to go with the Panthers, winning by 6, 28-22.
28-22 Panthers. Bob, what about you?
I'm right with Tony with this one, Chris. I like the Panthers by about a touchdown. I think there's the revenge factor. There's the quarterback in Denver factor. There's going to be the lack of magic in Denver factor. I say, I like a lot of the road teams this week, and Carolina's one of them. I'm going to pick them 24-17.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm going the opposite way right out of the chute. I like Denver, and here's why, right? If you look at Simeon, and I get he's not throwing an NFL pass, right? But, remember, we go back to the Super Bowl. Remember, Peyton Manning was anything but stellar in the Super Bowl, right? 13-23, 141 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. So I'm thinking Simeon could put up at least those kind of numbers, and I expect to see a lot of C.J. Anderson out of them. And I still remain unconvinced that Cam Newton's an MVP player. I just we saw what you put some pressure on him, and not so good things happen. So I'm going to go with Denver. I like them in an upset. I'm going to take them 20-17. Tony, our second game, New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are a 1-point home favorite. Can Dak Prescott come in and continue his great preseason and carry it into the regular season for the Cowboys?
I'll tell you what, man. Dak was very impressive in preseason. He was sharp, man. He looked like he'd been playing quarterback for at least 5-6 years in the league. And so, but the only thing that's shaking me is the Cowboys' defense. Their defense is absolutely terrible. I mean, I just can't see them stopping anybody. And with the Giants, you got Eli, you got one of the best receivers in the league out there playing. So, I'm going to have to go with the Cowboys just for the simple fact that they're playing at home with the running back and the offensive line that they have. And I just think Dak is going to keep playing well, man. I think the kid is unbelievable. I know it was preseason, but I was watching. I kind of watched every game that they played, and just the poise that he has in the pocket, and able to run when he needs to run, and take a sack when he needs to take a sack. And so I'm going with the Cowboys, 17-13.
17-13. All right, Bob, what do you think?
I'm going with the Giants, and this is probably the one game that Tony will beat me by when we add them all up at the end of the year. But there's a sense of optimism up here with McAdoo, guys. They like him here. Eli Manning likes what he has offensively. I don't think there's going to be a problem with the Giants scoring points. Defensively, they may play some high-scoring games, but their defense doesn't look too bad. But I do like the Giants in this game. I'm going to say they put up 30, and I'm going to say the Cowboys can do 24. 30-24 Giants.
All right. And I'm with Tony. I'm going Dallas in this one, fellas. Last time we saw the Giants defense, they were ranked dead last in yards allowed and passing yards allowed as well. They averaged giving up nearly 300 passing yards per game, and they were 24th against the run, allowing 121 yards per game, and 30th in average points allowed at 27.6. So this, the Cowboy defense not great, but Giants awful. And I haven't seen them, do a heck of a lot. They brought in, Janoris Jenkins on the right side at defensive back, but he allowed more catches, more yards, and more touchdowns than Prince Akamara, who he replaced. So, I just don't think the Giants, have what it takes. I mean, Dak Prescott, I get, that he's a rookie quarterback, but, he's exciting. Ezekiel, Elliott's exciting. They brought in Alfred Morris from the Redskins. So I like what they're doing. I don't like what I've seen so far from the Giants. So I'm going to take the Cowboys in the Jerry Dome. I think they win a close one as well. I think they're going to take it 24-20. Third game, Tony, is the Cincinnati Bengals go to the New York Jets, who are a 2.5-point. The Bengals are a 2.5-point road favorite. So, Tony, is the return of Ryan Fitzpatrick enough to spark the Jets to get a win at home to open the season?
I'm going to tell you, man, when you sent me the text on the teams that we're picking this week, this is one of those teams that I flipped a coin on. And it came up heads for the Bengals. I don't know why, but it came up heads. I have no idea who's going to win this game. So the coin toss said heads. The Bengals are ahead, so I'm going with the Bengals, 17-24. Bengals, 24-17.
Bob, did you flip a coin, or what did it come up?
Bengals, too. Tony,
you Bengals as well, all right?
Yeah, I'm going to go, I just think the Jets, I mean, they're picked up here slightly to be under 500. This is one of the home games they lose to a decent Bengals team. Yeah, I'm going to say the Bengals can win this game 28-20.
Yeah, and I'm with both of you guys. I got the Bengals winning it. Same score as Tony. I'm right on Tony with 24-17. Yeah, it's nice that, Ryan Fitzpatrick is back. He had a nice year last year, but, when you look around and you think about what Cincinnati has, and I think we're going to see the exact same Cincinnati Bengals team as we saw a year ago. Yeah, they lost Mohamed Sanu, their number 2 wide receiver, to Atlanta, but they brought in Brandon LaFell. So I think that's kind of a wash. They've added Carlos Dansby at linebacker, so he's a bit of an upgrade on their pass defense. So I'm with you guys. I like the Bengals. Again, 24-17. So I think we're all in agreement there. Game 4, we got the Tony's New England Patriots. They go all the way out to Phoenix to face the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are a 6-point favorite. We all know that Tony said that the Patriots would go 15-1 this season, 3-1 under Garoppolo. So the question becomes: is this the one loss that they have all year, Tony?
Let me tell you, this was a tough one for me. Cardinals, Carson Palmer. They got a good run in attack. They got a great defense. It's going to be tough, but the Patriots with their young quarterback, we don't even know if Gronk's going to play on Sunday or not. He's questionable, but he'll probably get out there and fill up. Defense, Patriots, I think they're going to play well to Arizona, playing that defense like that, and you got a veteran quarterback with Carson Palmer, great defense. But I'm going with the Patriots. I want to let them go against my team. We're going to win. We're going to win 27-25. It's going to be a close one. We're going to kick a field goal in the last second.
Wow. All that to say the Patriots are still going to win the game. Holy smokes. Bob, Tony crazy?
25.
You know, Chris, this many people think it may be a preview of a possible Super Bowl, and I do think one of them is going to the Super Bowl. But I have to pick the Cardinals at home there. I think they just have too much to prove. I think they're just going to come out of the gate pretty hard this year and go very far this year. I think they're going to win this game. This is probably one of just the one game that the Patriots lose without Brady. I'm going to say the Cardinals win this game 31-20.
All right, and I'm with you, Bob. I think there's just too much pointed in the favor of the Cardinals, right? You know, to Tony's point, Gronk is nursing a hamstring injury. We don't know if he's going to play. I hear he is, and I hear he isn't. So we'll see that, right? Garoppolo being out there. You know, they've got, some injuries, along, both lines. They brought in Chris Long, who's now their right defensive end. But, when you look at, Gerard Mayo retiring as well and just a cadre of other things, I just think it's too much to overcome to think that they're going to go out to Arizona and beat a team, to your point, Bob, that I think could be, challenging for a Super Bowl place. So I'm with you. I like the Cardinals. I think it's very similar, 30-17. All right, our last game is the San Diego Chargers. They open up on the road in Kansas City. The Chiefs are a 6.5-point home favorite, Tony. Who do you like in this one?
Kansas City playing at home, man. They got like 12 guys on the field with that crowd, man. It's going to be tough for San Diego to go in there with that crowd the way it is. Kansas City playing at home, it's always good to bet on them playing at home. I like their defense. Quarterback's good. But the crowd is going to be the one that's going to push them over the top. I like Kansas City. I like Kansas City's going to score some points. We're going to go 34-24.
34-24. All right, Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, it's so tough to go into that place and win, especially a team that's a below average team like the Chargers. They're like a 6-10 team, guys. So they're not going to go into Kansas City and win this game. Yes. Kansas City, I'm with you, Tony. I mean, Kansas City's going to probably put up 31. And, again, I think a guy like Phillip Rivers, he may have to throw for 5,000 yards this year because they just don't have any defense. But, yeah, 31. How about 31-14, Kansas City?
All right, and I'm with you guys. I agree. I think Kansas City wins this game. I think they take it. I think it's a little bit closer. I got it 24-17. But yeah, there's so many things. When you look at Kansas City, and I think the biggest thing is their defense. Like Tony pointed out, 7th in the league overall last season, 3rd in points allowed. So they're going to be tough to score against in Kansas City with that crowd. Even without Jamal Charles, I like Spencer Ware as a backup running back. They're going to feature him a bunch, and we all know Alex Smith is a guy that manages the game really well. It's not like he's going to be throwing a bunch of interceptions and he turns over the ball, left and right. So I think Kansas City holds serve. They do it at home. So we're all in agreement there. Tony, before we let you run, remind our listeners about the great things you're doing to help kids go to college.
Go to TonyCollinsProjects.com, TonyCollinsFoundation.com. Donate anything that you may want to do. We're giving out scholarships to kids going off to school. Just a great work that's going on. Real pleased with how things are coming on. We're talking with the recipients of this year, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do in school. We're keeping a good relationship with them, talking back and forth, and man, it's going great. So TonyCollinsProject.com and TonyCollinsFoundation.com.
That's fantastic. Tony, thanks for being a part of the show again this week. Best of luck with your picks and your fantasy team this week. We look forward to catching up with you again next week.
Yes, sir. You guys have a great one.
All right, take care, Tony. Former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins there in our 5-star picks of the week. Great stuff, Bob.
Oh, he's amped up, and I know
yes, he is.
He's the defending champion in this in our little pool going on here, and still has the competitive juices like he was when he was a player. But always a pleasure talking with Tony.
Absolutely, it is. All right, now making her 5th appearance with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is our wonderful friend in the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory Executive Director, Ann Jewell. And like I said at the top of the show, battling some allergies, so we're very grateful that she has taped an aspirin to it and playing hurt with us tonight. So, hey, Ann, Chris, and Bob here. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Well,
Hi,
hey, hello. Yes, the wonderful Ohio Valley this time of year. It'll knock you out, guys. Let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
So, Ann, catch us up with what's going on right now at the museum. We've been publicizing the Ripley's Believe It or Not exhibit and the new life-size statue of Jackie Robinson, which is fantastic. And you guys have been doing some really great stuff this year. Talk about all the things you guys have going on.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a special year. It's our 20th anniversary this year.
Nice.
And, so we've kind of been celebrating all year with special things kind of scattered throughout the year. The Ripley's Believe It or Not show was an extra special world premiere, really, for this show, where Ripley's Believe It or Not, a terrific brand with a great history and a very entertaining brand for sure. And we thought it would be fun to reach out to them about a baseball exhibition, sort of with a Ripley spin. And we really found out that there's a terrific history of baseball with Ripley's. And there's actually a Mr. Ripley, Robert Ripley, was a huge baseball fan, and he actually tried out for the Giants. He broke his arm, and that's when he really turned to cartooning with the Ripley's Believe It or Not cartoons and made his living and became a superstar. I mean, just a global icon of his day. But he always adored baseball, and he did a lot of sports cartoons and baseball in particular, and he kind of hung around with, the superstars of the time. I mean, Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig were buddies of his, and so baseball was always a part of his life. So that was sort of the springboard for the exhibit as a whole, and we had a blast, talking about that history. And then we really dove into that kind of crazy Ripley's twist where we created this oddball stadium. The name of the exhibition is Oddball, and took every Major League Baseball team and put a Ripley's twist to that particular team, whether it's the city or the mascot. So, for example, with the Cincinnati Reds, we had a portrait of Pete Rose painted on rose petals.
Wow.
And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, there's a life-size sculpture of Captain Jack Sparrow made out of seashells, and so things like that, just sort of fun, crazy twists on the sport. And then a lot of with baseball, there's the great food at the ballpark. So we have sort of a section of ballpark food, which includes this amazing, huge portrait of hometown hero Jennifer Lawrence, superstar actress, made out of peanuts. And, a portrait of Tom Cruise with ketchup and mustard, made out of ketchup and mustard. And a Hank Aaron sculpture made out of O. Henry candy bars, things like that. And for all, when you hear Ripley's, everybody, of course, expects to see the two-headed cows and the shrunken heads.
Right.
So, right, you got to have it. You got to deliver it. So we have sort of a separate little gallery set up for the diehard Ripley's fans who really want to see that stuff. And it's been a terrific show. People have really been enjoying it. It's been just what we wanted for our 20th anniversary. And that Jackie Robinson sculpture is something we've wanted to do for a while now. Our guests, he was by far the number one choice of our guests for our next sculpture. We've got, Babe Ruth already, and Ted Williams, and Ken Griffey Jr., and Derek Jeter. And it was time for another one, and it was hands down Jackie Robinson. And we were just thrilled because it meant a lot to us. We weren't going to do it unless Rachel Robinson, his wonderful wife, was on board with it. And she was, and she helped us right down to his shoe size. The researchers couldn't find his shoe size anywhere, and she let us know, size 11. And so, from head to toe, it is a fabulous Jackie Robinson tribute. Yeah, it really is. Those figures, those wax figures that we have get a lot of love from our guests, no doubt about it. They sure do.
Bob, questions for Ann?
And it's always great to speak with you. And we brought up one of the big highlights of the museum is the incredibly sized bat that is against the building there. It's 6 stories high, and you can see it for blocks, and it's kind of the symbol of the museum. And I'm just wondering, and the first thing that came to my mind was people must take thousands of pictures per week of this thing. It must be one of the more popular tourist things to at least use a camera with. But give our listeners some other facts about this thing. It's amazing. If you go to the website, you can see a great picture of it.
Right. It was a brilliant stroke of creativity when they came up with that bat. And you're right that it has turned into an icon for our city. And really, has this kind of a world-renowned status at this point. I was lucky enough for a number of years. My desk was right next to a window, a huge floor-to-ceiling window that looked right out over the base of the big bat. So I could just look to my right and look down at all of the crazy things that people would do, the poses they would get into, like they're trying to hold up the bat. And the funny costumes, and it's a nonstop thing. I would be there, early on a Sunday morning, late on a Friday night, and just a constant flow because we make it easy for people. There's a pull-in, off the street, so people can just drive right up. Even if we're closed, you can pull on in, hop out, snap a shot with the big bat, and you got your memento and head on. But we get bridal parties coming over for pictures with it, and it's hollow inside. It would hold 30,000 gallons of good old Kentucky bourbon in there if
Wow.
your drink of choice. Yeah, it weighs about 68,000 pounds. And I'll tell you a little secret about it. So when you look at it, it looks like it's leaning against the building. If you go stand directly under it and look up, you'll see that there's maybe 3 to 4 feet where it's actually not touching the building, and that's so it can move, in high winds if it needs to without actually damaging the building.
Wow.
So next time you're in the neighborhood, be sure to check that out.
Yes.
And another
it's due for
thing
a repainting. We were looking at it. It's been hand painted. It's made of steel. And of course, when they first made it, it was flat on the ground, so it was a lot easier to paint. Once you got it hoisted into place, every decade or so, it needs a touch-up. But you can't take it down, to do that. So
yeah.
So it takes one man and in a bucket, a huge crane and a bucket, and he's got a brush, maybe I'm not kidding, like a 3-inch brush, and he painstakingly gives a facelift to the big bat.
Wow.
And as far as bats that you can handle, and I mean the personalized bat section of the website is fascinating to me because people can actually purchase these in person there, sluggergifts.com. I mean, maybe you want to tell our viewers and listeners as far as the type of bats available. I know I have mine right next to me that Chris graciously gave me as a member of the TNT team here. It's just a beautiful piece. But you can get different styles like black bats and regular colored bats. I mean, it's pretty cool, and that must be it's got to be one of the great popular items that's brought out of that place.
There's no doubt about it. We like to say that there's a personalized bat for every occasion.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. The range of colors. And I mean, there are more colors and color combinations available now than ever before. Truly, just all kinds of really amazing, beautiful combinations of colors. And the messaging, you can put your signature on, your actual signature on there, as if you were under contract with us with the major leagues. You can put personalized messages on there. We can put, as you just referenced, we can put logos on those bats, and everything from groomsmen's gifts to newborn babies and the weight and the birth date and all. It's a lot of fun, and they're different sizes as well. So, it has certainly grown into a pretty amazing piece of business, really, and people are so touched when they get them. It's fun, to see that presentation and the reactions that it gets. It's just priceless, really.
And one more before we let you go. And you sort of alluded to this a moment ago with respect to the Ripley's Believe It or Not exhibit that you have. But one of the things that I saw, and I don't know why I never thought about this or didn't put the two and two together, but you've got there, Babe Ruth, a uniform worn by Babe Ruth that looks like an Arabian Night attire, which I guess if you go back to one of his many nicknames, the Sultan of SWAT, that makes sense. But, for the folks that haven't seen that, talk about what that uniform looks like. Right.
The folks at Ripley's were so terrific to work with. And when they first showed us, a shot of this uniform, it just blew us away. And it's perfect for Ripley's. So this was in 1939, and Babe Ruth was playing on the Ripley's Believe It or Not baseball team with Robert Ripley. And Walter Johnson also was playing. And then they had a number of celebrities as well. So it was a fundraiser. So they played some charity games to raise money for the war efforts coming up and so on. And these costumes are hilarious. It's like an Arabian Nights look with these, amazing sort of pantaloons. And a huge sash, and the colors are these bright, garish reds and yellows and greens, and a crazy hat on top. And you know what? We actually even uncovered video. There's in the museum itself. We found some film of Babe Ruth playing in this uniform.
Wow.
Even. Yeah, that was Ripley's had not seen it before. So hats off to our curator, Chris Myman, for tracking that down with our tour guide team. And so we actually have that playing along with this hilarious, amazing piece of history on display, along with, of course, the great notched bat that we have that Babe Ruth carved a notch in it for every home run that he hit with it. So it makes for a really fun presentation.
Mm-hmm. So, Ann, before we let you go, and we can't thank you enough for your continued partnership and being part of the show and contributing so that our listeners can get their personalized bats and that sort of thing. It's been a wonderful listener giveaway. But let our listeners know, how can they follow all the great things that you guys are doing, whether it's over social media or online as well?
Oh, terrific. Yeah. So, in fact, we're working on a new website. We hope to have a new website up in the next month or 4 to 6 weeks, and we're really excited about that, including a new sluggergifts.com website as well. So keep an eye out for that. But the museum website is sluggermuseum.com, and you can find us on Facebook. Our hashtag is Slugger Museum with Twitter and Instagram and all those good things. And we've got some, exciting stuff left for the rest of this year too. We're not quite ready to unveil yet our living legend for this year, but maybe we can talk after that sometime. We also, have our living legend event every year in the fall in November, so that'll be coming up, and that always produces some good stories to share with you guys.
We hope you will share that with us. I remember last year we had you on the show, I think right around that time, because Andre Dawson and our friend Al Oliver were a part of that, and so we look forward to hearing about that this year as well. So please, when it happens, I hope you'll come back and share stories from it.
We'd love to.
All right,
Thanks,
great.
man.
And thank you so much again for being a part of the show tonight. We look forward to catching up with you again real soon.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
All right, you too, Ann. That is Ann Jewell, the executive director of the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. And you know what, Bob? One of the many things that the museum is fantastic. For anyone who hasn't been, you hear us bragging about it at the top of the show every single week about the bat vault and everything. And it is a fantastic place for everyone in the family. But one of the best things that I love every time Ann comes on the show is the enthusiasm in her voice. It's just contagious. I love that.
It is, Chris, and she and every time she comes on, she has something new to report, a new exhibit, a new undertaking. Right. Now, of course, they have the website coming up, but she's perfect for that job. A great ambassador, and she knows the great history of the ball game too. And it's an affordable place, and like you had said, Chris, whoever hasn't not been there, you have to get down there. It's just a family atmosphere, and just look for the big bat, right, Chris?
That's exactly right. All right, we've got our next guest, Chris Miller, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Chris on the other side of these words from our friends at the French Lick Resort and Kyvan Foods.
This is the time to play legendary golf at French Lick Resort. Book one of our money-saving packages like the Hall of Fame package and play our Pete Dye and Donald Ross courses. Stay in historic luxury at our French Lick or West Baden Springs hotels. Relax in our spas. Dine in our restaurants. Have some gaming fun in the casino. Or just rock on our rambling verandas like they did 100 years ago. Go online to FrenchLick.com and book your legendary golf getaway now at French Lick Resort.
This is Reggie Kelly, former Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcon tight end, and I'm the owner of Kyvan Foods. And if you enjoy delicious food, you're going to love my Kyvan products, which consist of our honey apple salsa, sweet barbecue sauce, and an array of seasonings. For store locations, online orders, and recipes, check out our website at www.kyvan82.com. That's KYVAN 82.com. One taste, and you'll appreciate the goodness.
This is Christine Lisi, and you're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate, where NFL stars go to tell their stories with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
And now back with us and making his third appearance on the Kyvan Foods guest line is Chris Miller. Let me remind you about Chris's background. He is from Pomona, California, which is in Los Angeles County. Played his high school football at Eugene Sheldon High School in Oregon, and he went on to play his college ball at the University of Oregon, where he remains sixth all-time on their passing yards list and eighth in touchdown passes. 1999, he was inducted into the University of Oregon's Athletic Hall of Fame. And in 2005, he was inducted into the State of Oregon Sports Hall of Fame. He was a first-round draft pick, the 13th overall selection in 1987 by the Atlanta Falcons, and he played in the NFL from 1987 to 1999 for the Falcons, Rams, and Broncos. He was named to the Pro Bowl in 1991 when he threw for over 3,100 yards and 26 touchdowns, leading the Falcons to their first playoff appearance in nearly a decade. And over the course of his career, he threw for 19,320 yards and 123 touchdowns. And we are thrilled that he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Chris and Bob here. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris and Bob. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
So, Chris, let's start by talking about your yeah, no, we got you.
You guys hear me all right? Okay,
yep,
cool.
Absolutely. So, Chris, let's start by talking a little bit about your alma mater, the Oregon Ducks. Nice opening win last week over UC Davis. You've got Virginia coming up this Saturday, and then you're off to Nebraska. But curious to get your thoughts. How do you feel about the Ducks this season?
Well, I tell you what, there's a lot of unknown with the Ducks. I think I was familiar with about two names on defense. So we have a lot of new bodies, a lot of new guys. There's been a lot of turnover, a lot of graduation rate. And I know on the offensive side of the ball, we're starting 4 redshirt freshmen in the offensive line. We've got a new quarterback in Prukop that came over, a graduate from Montana State. And so there's a lot of new faces, a lot of new names. And Virginia, I think, is a program on the rise. I know Bronco Mendenhall has taken over there. And I feel like that's a game that we should handle at home. But I think we'll get a true test when we go to Nebraska and Lincoln and see how we do in week 3.
And, Chris, looking around the Pac-12, I think for about 15 minutes we all thought that USC's defense looked pretty stout, and maybe Alabama was in for a dogfight. They were down 3-0 after the first quarter, and then you sort of blinked twice, and it was 52-6 Alabama. Does that say more about how great Alabama is, or just how much disarray the USC program is in right now?
Well, I think it really speaks to how good Alabama is. I mean, when you look at their athletes, when you look at the size of their linemen and then their backups and then their third-string guys, I mean, they without a doubt recruit better than anybody in the country in terms of, getting the top athletes. I think their program kind of self-recruits. I think they have a lot of kids that just want to go there, and I'm sure they have to turn kids away. But, they do a fantastic job with recruiting. They have tremendous athletes. Their young quarterback looked very good. And USC's Max Brown's playing quarterback there, so he's new. He's a new player coming in, and I'm sure they have some evolution to get used to with, kind of a newer coach. But when you get against a team like Alabama and it starts flowing the wrong way, it can get ugly quick, and it did. They look pretty dominant.
Bob, questions for Chris?
Chris, I went a little farther back than Oregon, back to your high school, and what fascinated me is the 3 players listed from Sheldon High School that went on to the pros were yourself, Mike Walter, and Todd Christensen. I mean, all three of you guys had incredible success in the NFL, especially a guy like Christensen who went to 5 Pro Bowls. Chris, I was wondering, I mean, you were coming in the league when he was pretty much exiting. Did you get to know him quite well through the alumni network before his unfortunate death, and what kind of guy was Todd Christensen?
Well, I got to know Todd very well. My sister graduated in 77 from Sheldon, and he was class of 75. And he was one of those guys back in the day before working out a lot became popular, and he'd be in there in the morning, and his definition of a good workout would be he wouldn't quit till he threw up. So I mean, he worked so hard, he'd work himself into a frenzy and throw up. He had a tremendous work ethic. Then he actually was thinking about going back and playing in about age 41 or 42. So he and I went in the Mashosky Center, Oregon's indoor practice facility, and we threw the ball around for about an hour and a half, and it was one of the greatest times I had, because he's a very intellectual guy. Every quote he ever heard that he liked, he kept on a 3x5 card. He emceed some of our, fundraiser events for Sheldon High School, and just a tremendous man. Father of 6, great family, very strong faith, and unfortunately, a accident he had in his early 20s ended up coming back to haunt him and taking his life. But tremendous man, very passionate, incredible work ethic, and he was very talented, like you mentioned. I mean, 5 Pro Bowls, and he was one of the true receiving type tight ends, way ahead of his time.
Your rookie year in Atlanta, Chris, it seemed like, well, you had to be watching other guys play. You got into 3 games. We had guys like Scott Campbell on that team. Eric Kramer was also one of the guys, but Campbell had most of the snaps, and I know Dowhauer was the offensive coordinator at the time. Was it a tough year, a big learning experience, Chris? Who was probably your biggest, shall we say, mentor during your rookie year?
Yeah, I would say, with these young quarterbacks coming in, Jared Goff and the gentleman at Philadelphia, the quarterback at Philadelphia, there were 14 of us first-rounders in 1987. That was a strike year. So there were 14 of us first-rounders that didn't sign till Halloween. So we didn't get the benefit of an off season. We didn't get the benefit of a training camp. So my first action was against the LA Rams, and recently Hall of Famer Kevin Green knocked my helmet off with a great shot right to the chin and kind of rung my bell, but I completed a nice 20-yarder there. And Kevin said he always respected me from that hit. Then the next week I went to go play at Candlestick Park against, they won the Super Bowl that year, Ronnie Lott and the boys, and I hardly even knew our offense, and here I am playing against Ronnie Lott and Keena Turner and Joe Montana and all these guys, and my eyes were big as a frog, if you will. But so it wasn't really a true rookie year in the sense of a rookie year going through training camp and all those things. So my second year, I really felt my first training camp I treated like my rookie year, and it was quite a transition. But I'll never forget my second year in '88 playing against the New York Giants and Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson and Reggie White when he was in Philly. And, they welcome you to the NFL very quick. And when I got to Atlanta, they only had 3 winning seasons in their first 23 years. So, it wasn't a very good program at that time, and we certainly had some growing pains, me included.
And Chris, as you think about the Falcons, nowadays, right? Last season they got off to a pretty quick start, 5-0, and then sort of limped home at 3-8 the rest of the way. Matt Ryan and the offense though look really good. Matt finished 5th in the league in passing yards. They got their head coach Dan Quinn was the architect up your way with the Seahawks defense. Curious to get your thoughts on what you've seen from the Falcons and what you expect to see from them this year.
Well, I know Matt Ryan. He's a great man. He's a very good person. I think 3 years ago they went 13-3, and then I believe the following year they went 3-13. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, last year they had that hot start and plateaued at 8-8. So I think from a great organization and a good, solid organization, you're looking for that consistency. And I think Atlanta a couple of years ago made a mistake when I think they let 3 offensive linemen go. They thought they could replace them. And it really turned out to be a big hole. I think Matt took a lot of pressure a couple of years ago, and so they're trying to fill those voids or those holes right now with some linemen that they've brought in. But certainly offensively, if Julio Jones can stay healthy, I know they added a young guy. They've got a tremendous running back, had a great year last year. They got to shore up the defense. You know, Atlanta used to be known for a tough defensive club, and going into play in that Georgia Dome was always a hard place to play, but I don't know that their defense has been that stout the last couple of years. But like you said, that's Dan Quinn's forte and expertise, so I would look for him to put his stamp on that defense this year.
And Chris, when you look at the quarterbacks in the league today, are there two or three guys that you really, when you're sitting back watching NFL games on Sunday, a couple of guys that you really enjoy, watching?
I really do. I think Aaron Rodgers throws it better than anyone in the history of the game. I think he has the most dynamic, explosive arm, and he makes the most unique off-balance Hail Mary 70 yards in the air or 60 yards in the air rolling left where he just throws it out of his hip pocket for a game-winning or game-tying Hail Mary. So I love watching Aaron Rodgers. I love watching Drew Brees play because Drew Brees is, he's under 6 foot, and he's just an artist in the pocket, very creative, very accurate. His movement in the pocket's great. I got great respect for him. He's a future Hall of Famer. And then I love watching Cam Newton. He's just he's a freak. He's 6'6", 255, 260, very athletic. I know he's playing now, and I'll go watch the second half of that game later. But I'd say I appreciate those guys. I love his athleticism. I thought he had a great year last year. He was Rookie of the Year in the NFL as a quarterback his rookie season, so he's a very talented up-and-coming QB.
Bob, more for Chris?
Hey,
Chris, and I might ask you this the last time. Okay.
Yeah, let me throw this out. I can't forego Tom Brady. I love watching Tom Brady play too. The guy's been to 6. Yeah, he's been to 6 Super Bowls. He's won 4, I think, and 6th-round draft pick, has that chip on his shoulder. But I do really enjoy watching him too. And the way he throws the ball, he's so fluid, and it's a natural motion. And I'm excited to see what Garoppolo does the first 4 weeks. So that'll be fun to watch too.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris, I just wanted to ask you about one of your coaches. You've had some great ones, your Chuck Knoxes of the world. There were some very good coaches there, but Jerry Glanville was one of the guys in Atlanta, and we associate Jerry with defense and he was kind of a firecracker out there. But was this guy actively involved on the offensive side of the ball? Did he know his X's and O's, Chris?
Well, I think Jerry was a very sharp guy. He started out being a special teams coordinator, so he had a good feel for special teams. And then, he was quite a defensive coach. He was a good defensive coach, and I think he definitely had his hand on, what we were doing with our offense. Tom Rossi was my offensive coordinator in 90. Then June Jones came in 91, 92, and 93 when I was there. So, he entrusted the offense to June, but he was obviously very adept and knew, our schemes and what we were doing. And it was really cool. I got to coach with June Jones and Jerry in the East-West Shrine game back in January, back in Florida. And Jerry's like 74, 75 years old now, but he's still like a freaking 28, 30-year-old kid. He's just young and having fun and cutting up and wearing all black and wearing his cowboy boots. And he was a great character, but he was a good football coach too. He knew his X's and O's for sure.
And finally, Chris, your final year after a couple-year layoff in Denver, and I remember Brian Griese was there, much younger than you at the time. I always thought he had a very, very good arm and just never materialized as maybe he was playing in his father's shadow. I'm not sure, but I always thought the guy had an incredible arm, but will go down in history as probably your average quarterback.
Well, Brian, Bubby Brister was the starter that year. Then Brian kind of struggled. Then I got in and played really well for 3 games, but unfortunately got hit in the head again and had my same concussion symptoms. But Brian, I think, had one really banner year where I think he had 24 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. And I think he went to the Pro Bowl that year. And I believe Gary Kubiak was able to stay on the headsets a little longer, maybe that year, which helped him some. But, then after that, I really didn't follow his career closely, but I think he, never really established himself as a day-to-day starter. I know Brian well. I like Brian. I think he's doing a great job on TV. And, And Denver was in a little bit of a transition too after they won those Super Bowls back to back. You know, their program kind of they lost some great players, Shannon Sharps, Terrell Davis, some of those guys, Rod Smith, Ed McCaffrey, and so they had to change their identity somewhat. And I think Brian was kind of caught in the middle of that. And I think, you know, one thing people don't really recognize or realize sometimes is Colin Kaepernick struggled last year as a quarterback playing, but then who are his skilled guys? You know, Anquan Bolden, who's a baller, and I got great respect for, but he's probably about a 4'8" guy now. And the other guys around him weren't great skilled players, and they lost 2 linemen. Iupati went somewhere, and the Davis guy retired. So I don't care who you are as a quarterback. If you don't have bullets around you and some talent and athletes, you know, it's tough to be successful. And I think Brian got caught in a little transitionary period there with Denver as well.
Chris, one more before we let you go. Just curious, when you're sitting around, you know, talking to friends, family, your buddies, you know, guys that you played in the league with, or, you know, even the high school kids that you're coaching now, what's one of your favorite stories that you like to share with them about your time in the league?
Oh, man, most of my stories are PG-13 on the other end, maybe a little R back in the day. So I have to I mean, when we were in Atlanta, we were rip-roaring and running. You know, we went pretty fast, and I was wide open. I'm a Christ-like man now, and have changed my program quite a bit. But I think probably some of the funnest stories that the listeners would appreciate when we were in training camp with Atlanta with Jerry Glanville, he would get 2 buses, and he would take the team to downtown Atlanta. And we would go to Fat Tuesdays where they'd have mixed drinks, like in a washing blender dryer, looked like a dryer machine. And he would take us down on the town to go let our hair down and go cut loose and kind of, you know, get wild and crazy. And he would always say, all right, everybody who's mellow and wants to go back on the first bus, fine. The second bus is anyone who wants to fight and get after it. And you know, get kind of wild and crazy. So he always talked about, hey, who's on the first bus and who's on the second bus. But, you know, we had Deion Sanders back then and Andre Rison, and probably one of the funniest stories is Andre and I missed both buses, and he and I ended up taking a cab home later that night and got back about 6 in the morning. So that was a pretty wild story back in the day about how Atlanta was for a while. But we all grew up, and obviously Deion's career turned out fantastic, and Andre had a pretty darn good career as well.
Yes, they did. Chris, before we let you go, how can our listeners stay up to date with the things that you're doing? You're a high school coach now, but how can they follow you, whether it's online or over social media?
Oh, well, on Twitter, I'm Chris Miller QB. Has a picture of me in my Atlanta Falcon quarterback uniform, so Chris Miller QB. And then I'm at Westland High School, West and the word Linn, westlandfootball.org, and you can kind of track our high school football team. We're ranked number 1 in the state of Oregon, and got some very talented young men. Yeah, very talented young men going to Oregon and Stanford and some FCS schools. And so, yeah, they can go to westlandfootball.org and check it out, or Chris M. QB, and kind of check out. I make a tweet post every once in a while. I'm not a big Twitter guy, but I do a little bit.
That's fantastic. Chris, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. It's always great for Bob and I get the opportunity to talk with you and to hear more about your stories and your insights. I hope you'll come back and do it again during the course of the season. Love to catch up with you as the season progresses.
Certainly, guys. And, hey, thanks for having me. And you guys do a fantastic job. You really do. I enjoy listening to the tail end of that Louisville Slugger talk. So you guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Take care. All the best to you and your family, Chris.
Okay, you as well. Bye-bye.
That is former Oregon Ducks and Atlanta Falcons, Rams, and Broncos quarterback Chris Miller. And Bob, you want to talk about a guy, you know, who doesn't get, the credit that he probably deserves for his time in the league. And like he said, he certainly battled, concussion issues through the course of his career, sort of forced him from the game. But what a great player that he was during his time there. And I think Denver Broncos fans feel a little bit cheated because, to his point, when he got an opportunity to get in there in Denver, he did a great job. And unfortunately, just the concussion issue became too much. And I think he did the right thing and walked away from the game. But a great player.
He was, Chris. On the surface, a very, very nice 10-year career, but Chris he sadly only played, I think, about 5 or 6 of those years, Chris, where he was only 12 or more games. But, yeah, we all feel we got cheated. But a guy that his TD to interception ratio was always good, and a very, very talented quarterback, and always welcomed on this show.
Absolutely, he is. All right, we're going to get to, Bob and I are going to get to the rest of our picks here on the NFC side. We're going to do so, but before we get there, I want to give a shout-out to our good friend Renee Shull over at Career Engagement Institute. Folks, if you're upside down in your career, what do we mean by that? Well, you're ready to move on. Go to careerengagement.institute to see how Renee can help you, right? We talked about, Toy Cook here was on the show a couple of months ago singing Renee's praises. If you work with her for 2 minutes, you're going to understand exactly why Toy did that, and we brag on Renee every single week here on Thursday Night Tailgate. We all want, to work with someone who, that we can trust and actually has our best interests at heart, and you know how rare it is to find someone like that. Well, you're not going to find someone who fits that bill any better than Renee Shull does. She's smart, creative, very talented, the kind of person you want to work with and have working for you. She is doing great things with some of our guests who have been in transition from being pro athletes and are now getting into the job market. Folks, I'm telling you, Renee is just the very best. There isn't a better way to describe her than that. If you're an athlete or anyone in the job market, do yourself a favor and reach out to Renee. You're going to be so very glad that you did. Go to careerengagement.institute online and give her a follow on Twitter @IntegratedPlay. All right, Bob and I, we're gonna finish up here with you on our picks. We did the AFC earlier in the show, and if you missed that part of the show, first of all, you can stream or download the show from any of your favorite podcasting sites, and you can hear our picks. I'll recap them for you really quickly. In the AFC, Bob and I both like the Patriots and the Steelers to win the AFC East and the AFC North, respectively. In the AFC South, Bob likes the Colts and the Texans to kind of battle it out. I'm going a little bit on a limb, and I'm taking the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think are a team on the come and are going to be very good for a very long period of time. A lot of good young nucleus there down in Jacksonville. So I like the Jags to win the AFC South. In the AFC West, Bob liked the Raiders and the Chiefs. I think, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we both like the Chiefs to win the division and both liked the Raiders to win a wild card, right? Didn't you have the Raiders in the wild card?
Right.
Yeah. Right. So we both like that. So again, Steelers, Patriots, and then Bob liked the Colts and the Colts to win the AFC South. I like the Jags. He likes the Texans to be a wild card. He liked the Raiders to be the other wild card. I like the Bengals to be the other wild card. We both like the Kansas City Chiefs to win that division, and then we both like the Patriots against the Steelers in the AFC Championship game, and both had the Steelers coming out to play in Super Bowl 51. All right, so now on the NFC side, Bob, NFC East, who do you like?
Well, this is that division I talked about, Chris. That injury to Romo puts that whole division probably up in the air, and it's a cliche, but probably the team that from this division will have to win the division to get in the playoffs. I don't think you're going to see a wild card come from this division.
Right.
Giants, Chris, I mean, there's a lot of optimism here. Of course, with Romo going down, it's a very, very even division. So, the Giants might just steal that division. It's going to be I think the Giants and Cowboys are a little bit heads above the Eagles and Redskins. So, hey, I'll go with the Giants to have about the winner of that division, Chris, 9-7. So, let's flip a coin and say it's the Giants.
All right. And Bob, I'm going with the Redskins to repeat because I like the additions of Josh Norman, Kirk Cousins, believe it or not, was 10th in the league last year in passing yards, 5th in passer rating, 29 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Guys really come into his own. We'll see if he can do it in back-to-back seasons. But I like the Redskins. You talk. The other teams in the division, Carson Wentz, right, starting for the Eagles, so I think that's going to take some time, for him to develop and for that offense to gel. So I think that puts them out. Cowboys, are kind of a wait-and-see team right now. I mean, Dak Prescott certainly lit it up in the preseason. Has gotten everyone excited down there, but he's a rookie quarterback as well. We'll see how well he can do with that Cowboys offense. He's got a great offensive line working for him, a couple of really good running backs in Ezekiel Elliott I forget right off the top of my head, but they brought over the guy from the Redskins, and we talked about him earlier. My mind's escaping me at the moment, but so I got a couple of good running backs there. It's good to see Des Bryant. Looks like his concussion issues are behind him, so he's got a really good offense. We'll see how well he does against actual defenses, and as they say, the number ones, right, and not a vanilla defense. So, but exciting times ahead for the Cowboys. They could be there. The Giants could be there. The only thing that stops me, and I said this earlier in our 5-star picks of the week with Tony, but the Giants defense scares me, right? Defense wins championships, and the Giants were dead last year, and I don't know that they've done a heck of a lot to make any improvements on that. You really could, Bob. Tony likes to say, well, flip a coin in a lot of areas. This is a division you absolutely could flip a coin to decide who you think's actually going to win it. But I think the Redskins have done enough, and I'm gonna stick with them to win the NFC East again this year. All right, NFC North, Bob. Curious to get your thoughts. Who do you like there? I mean, I think this is a division that's got to me one team stands out about head and shoulders above the rest. Curious to think, do you agree that Green Bay is the team in the NFC North?
Totally agree, Chris. It's theirs to lose. There's no question that team, if they stay semi-healthy, they're going to win 11 games. I mean, there's no question with Jordy Nelson back, they're going to put up great numbers. I'm hearing Eddie Lacy's in probably the best shape of his life. But, these guys get banged up a lot. Guys like Lacy's always hurting, Chris. Not that that's going to kill their offense, but that offense is going to score points. There's no question in my mind. It's it's always the defense of that team that disappoints late in the season, whether it's due to injury or just not having the horses. I don't know how much they've improved it. I'd say it's about the same as it has been. It's a team that I picked to go to the Super Bowl probably 2 out of the last 3 years, and I'm not going to do it this year, but they will win that division easily.
Yeah, I agree, Bob. Yeah, I think they're by far the best team in this division. I see the Vikings, Lions, and Bears now all sort of taking a step backwards this year. I mean, I think the Vikings are going to struggle a bit early, right, as they sort of try to figure themselves out under Bradford. They may hit their stride later in the season, but I think it's going to be too little, too late to think about catching Green Bay, who I think is going to finish probably about 13-3 in this division. Lions without Megatron are going to struggle on offense, a bit more. Marvin Jones won't come close to replacing his production. And they've got no running game there in Detroit. The Bears defense needs a lot of work. We'll see what Kevin White brings them at wide receiver this year after missing, his entire rookie season to injury. They were 6-10 last year. Probably struggled to do that well or better this year. But Green Bay is the NFC North champion this year. Let's move over to the NFC South, Bob. Carolina, is certainly the team that looks to be, to everyone to beat. So many people have them going to the Super Bowl. Does anyone challenge them in your mind in the NFC South?
I don't think so, Chris. That's a team. They're not going to be as good as they were last year. That was a magical season, even though they come up short a little bit. A good date on your calendar would be the October 30th, the Halloween game against the Cardinals. That might be one of your a preview of the NFC Championship. But this is a team. Again, Chris, they'll win 10 games, and I don't see anyone else in that division being that much over 500, if any. Breeze with the new contract, I'm not sure that makes up for a lot of the gaps in that team. But, right. Carolina wins that division, I think, pretty easily.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the Saints are going to be okay. The loss of Benjamin Watson, certainly hurts them. Longtime wide receiver Marquise Colston, he's no longer with the team. I think he's retired now. Their defense was ranked 31st last year, and they didn't make any major additions, so they're going to struggle to keep teams, from outscoring them as good as their offense, may be. The Panthers, they get Kelvin Benjamin back, so you add him, to the highest scoring offense in the league last year, and then they're only going to get better. Devin Funchess had a nice season, so now Panthers have two very tall targets now for Cam Newton to throw to on top of Ted Ginn and Greg Olsen. We know what a dangerous tight end he is. Jonathan Stewart's great. Mike Tolbert adds to their backfield. Their defense is solid. So I think they are for sure the class of the league. Now, hey, Tampa Bay to me is another team on the rise. Jameis Winston looks like he's going to be, coming into his own, right? He continues to mature. I hear a lot of good things from down in Tampa about his work ethic and how, hard he is working to become, a great quarterback, right? He's not worrying, about, being a star or being anything other than a great quarterback. And, his last 3 games of the season, he averaged over 300 yards passing. So we'll see how they do under new head coach, Dirk Koetter. So we'll see how well that comes together. But I think they could surprise a few people, Bob, this season. Tampa Bay looks like to me a young team that's going to just continue to get better and better, just like, their cross-state rivals, Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville says that on the AFC side. I think Tampa Bay is going to be, very strong on the NFC side over the next few years. But to your point, Bob, Carolina's the class of this division. NFC West, Bob, who do you like there?
Well, this team might be the best team in football, Chris. Arizona, I don't see – Seattle is going to be good. There's no question about that. They still have that nucleus there. But Arizona, Chris, after the disappointment of last season, I just think, this is a team almost with their backs against the walls. As far as what I mean by that is you have a guy like Carson Palmer, you have a guy like Larry Fitzgerald. Chris, how much time do these guys really have left to win a Super Bowl? And even a Chris Johnson. We can go on and on. But these guys are still productive. And now you talk about a defense now that added Chandler Jones. You have Patrick Peterson, who might be one of the best defensive backs in football. If they avoid injury and Arians, I think they're out for blood this year. This team, 13-3 last year, they're going to win another 12 games this year. If they stay healthy, I expect to see them in the Super Bowl. So as far as that division, yeah, they edge out Seattle. It might be tough at times, but I think just Arizona it's their year.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Bob. I think this is a dogfight between the Cardinals and the Seahawks, and I think both of them could win 13 or 14 games, really. And I'm going to pick the Cardinals only because the Seahawks have that, midseason road game up in Foxborough against the Patriots that could really be the difference in who wins this division. I think they'll split with each other. But the Cardinals get lucky, right? They get the Tom Brady-less Patriots, right, to open the season this Sunday at home, while the Seahawks get them later in the year on the road. I think the Cardinals, they could lose a road game, to Carolina. To your point, that's the October 30th game you were just talking about a moment ago. And, that may be their only other loss besides, if they split with Seattle, there you go. While the Seahawks, they could lose to Arizona. They could lose up in Foxborough, and they split. They got a game up in Green Bay in December, which no one wants to play in Green Bay in December or January. So I think that's the difference. I think both of these teams are going to be elite. I think both of these teams go to the playoffs. I think the Cardinals win the division. I have Seattle as one of my wild card teams. So let's Bob, as we go back through it, you like the Giants in the NFC East. I like the Redskins. We both like Green Bay in the North. We both like Carolina in the South. And I think we both like the Cardinals to win the NFC West. I just said a moment ago I like Seattle as one of my wild card teams. Who are your wild card teams in the NFC, Bob?
You may have a team, Chris, it's not coming out of the East. It may be a team, I was going to say the Vikings, but with that quarterback situation, it may be tough. You got to like Seattle, Chris, as far as one of them. But as far as the other division, if it's not coming from the East, Chris, you have people have doubts about a team like Minnesota, a team like who knows? It could be one of those teams. It's going to be a sleeper. I think the wild card team in the NFC might be a sleeper team, and it's going to be one of these teams that we haven't even mentioned. Maybe somebody like Atlanta comes out of nowhere, but So let's put Seattle in there, and I'll pick one out of a hat. How about the Falcons?
Wow. All right. Mine's Tampa Bay. Yeah, no, mine's Tampa Bay. I just think they're a young team on the come. I like Winston. I like, Doug Martin had a really nice year last year running the football. I think if, they can continue to mature as a group, I think Tampa Bay and I think Jacksonville are going to surprise some people. So that's, if we're going, hey, you're right, Bob. It could be a lot of teams, but, in the NFC. But if someone's going to surprise, I'm gonna throw my surprise on Tampa Bay and Jameis Winston and his continued maturity, and I like what I see down in Tampa Bay. So we'll see how it works out. So through that, who's your Super Bowl team coming out of the NFC?
Arizona.
Arizona's your team. So we got a repeat of Super Bowl 43, Steelers Cardinals.
I'm going to do that, Chris. I think the Steelers somehow they stay healthy enough. Maybe it's a blessing that Bell gets a late start, is kind of healthy. If Big Ben, of course, it's a no-brainer. If he's got to stay healthy. He's kind of always banged up at the end, but I think he stays healthy enough, and their defense is improved enough to win an AFC that might be down a little bit this year. I'm not going to say they sneak to the Super Bowl, but they get there. Arizona and Pittsburgh would be a good matchup, Chris.
Yeah, and you know what, Bob? I'm 100% in agreement. I like the Steelers in the AFC. I like the Cardinals in the NFC. I think it would make a very interesting Super Bowl, not just because it's a repeat of 43, but Bruce Arians and the Ben Roethlisberger relationship and his time in Pittsburgh and all of that. So, and to your point, Arizona is a more desperate team because Carson Palmer, because of Larry Fitzgerald. Those guys are coming to, the twilights in their career. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen this year. Maybe next year it might be the last sort of, kind of last go round, if you will, for those guys together to really be at the top of their games to be able to put together a Super Bowl run. But I think this is the year, and I'm with you. I think we see a repeat of Super Bowl 43. So we both think Steelers Cardinals. So we'll see how it works out, folks. All right, now back with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is our good friend Bill Ferrario, former Wisconsin and Green Bay Packers offensive lineman. Bill was a fourth-round draft pick out of Wisconsin in 2001 by Green Bay. He was an All-Big Ten and All-American guard at Wisconsin, where he paved the way for Heisman Trophy winner Ron Dayne. He started all 50 games during his college career, only the third Big Ten player in history to be able to do that. He helped Wisconsin win back-to-back Rose Bowls in 1999 and 2000, played in the NFL from 2001 to 2004 with the Packers, Redskins, and Panthers. He's been a great friend of the show over the years. And like we said at the top of the show, this is show number 250 for us, 250 episodes of Thursday Night Tailgate. Bill first joined us back on show 48. So he's been around with us for a long time, and we're excited he is back again tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Bill, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Bill.
Chris and Bob, awesome. I'm excited to be here. I apologize for a little bit of the delay. I think I was still recovering from that upset in Lambeau Field this past weekend, Badgers over LSU. So sorry about it, but I'm glad we finally got to touch base here.
Absolutely. So, yeah, Bill, you got to be pretty happy what you saw from your Badgers. What a big win in essentially your second home of Lambeau Field.
First off, it was an exciting day out there. It was fun to see the LSU crowd and just the whole environment around a big-time college game like that in Lambeau Field. And, of course, just thrilled to see my Badgers come out on top and to show a strong performance. It was just about 2 years ago we started playing these competitive non-conference games, and we were 0-2 the last 2 years. So to be able to come out with a big win to start the season was very exciting, and a lot of potential here coming up in a tough Big Ten season we have ahead of us.
Yeah, so, your boys made a huge leap in the polls, going from, unranked to 10th in the AP, 16th in the coaches poll. You've got, Akron and Georgia State over the next 2 weeks games on paper, right, that they should win. But, you never look past the team, because that's when you end up getting beat. But, let's say they get through those two games. And then you got back-to-back games on the road at Michigan State, at Michigan. So curious to get you, what are your expectations for Wisconsin this year?
I think that LSU game really says a lot, that we got a good team. We got a lot to build on. But, yeah, this is, if we're coming off such a huge win like LSU and looking at this year's Big Ten schedule compared to probably the last 4 or 5 years, I think it is hands down the toughest Big Ten schedule. Like you said, Michigan State on the road. I know our home schedule really well. We got Ohio State at home. We got Nebraska at home. We're setting them up to be great environments. Both of those games are night games, but man, oh man, it's just, we got some tough games this year, and the Big Ten's just been getting tougher and tougher. So it's obviously, being an alum and a big supporter, I'm rooting them on and cheering them on, but I got to see them play in the Big Ten a little bit and get their feet underneath them. I like the way we started, like you said, the Akron and Georgia State. I'm really feeling confident that we're going to enter the Big Ten season at 3-0, but obviously you want to be able to work out some of the kinks over those games and definitely not overlook anybody. But I just can't say enough how tough Wisconsin's Big Ten schedule looks, and it's concerning to say the least.
Bob, questions for Bill?
Welcome back, Bill. And the question that first came to my mind tonight is you were a very big man coming out of college, over 300 pounds, and a lot of these kids, Bill, they're big and they're fast and they're strong. It's not like it used to be when you had 250, 260-pound guys coming into the league when I was a kid. But these guys coming out of college, it seems like they're big and strong enough to play in the league, Bill. But what do they really have to learn, or what are they lacking in skills that the NFL must impart on them before they become a bona fide lineman?
I think that, I think when you have those kids that have the size and have the speed and the strength, like you said, that's one thing. But I think the big misnomer is the smarts, the on-field smarts. I know for myself, going from my freshman through, I'd say, beginning of my junior year, I was trying to fine-tune my position and know my position as well as I can. When I felt like I made the leap in college to being a good guard to what I would hopefully say like a great college offensive lineman, was when I really started understanding the whole offense as a whole. What my left tackle's doing all the way to my right tackle, where my quarterback's lining up to throw the ball, what the running back is looking at on a certain play, and really understanding what everybody's doing. And I think as the nice thing for me during my college years was we all came in young. So by my junior year, I think my freshman year, we had 12 starts on our offensive line, and they all came in our left tackle, chris-mascaro, who was a first-round draft pick. And then by my junior year, I think we had the most starts out of any offensive line in college at that time. I think we had it was somewhere over 200 starts, I think we had by my junior year. So it, having time together like that definitely helps, where you're all growing at the same speed. But I think the biggest game changer is that on the field smarts with understanding the offense as a whole, or if you're a defense player, the defense as a whole, and two, an offensive lineman, understanding the defense, understanding coverages, understanding how defenses disguise blitzes. So I think that really is a difference between being big, strong, and fast, or being good at your position. The next level is really understanding the game more.
I know you've been asked this question many times, probably by myself in the past, Bill, but as far as a guy that spent time in Green Bay, the whole stigma and eeriness and the legendary status of Lambeau Field, what was it like the first time you were on that field, and did you get that feeling that this is football Americana as good as it gets?
Absolutely. I'll even take it. I'll get to the field in a second, but I'll even take it as far back as to the locker room. When I was lucky enough, I was drafted in 2001, and we did the renovations on the stadium in 2002. So I was a part of the green Lambeau Field, and then the new renovated Lambeau Field as well. And the locker room, when I walked in there in 2001, granted, they've done upkeep on it and stuff, but it was the same exact locker room that I saw in pictures from the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, all the way back. It was the same style locker room. They just kept upgrading things little by little. So that was exciting from a locker room standpoint. When you walk on that field, though, I mean, just walking down the tunnel, even when we did the renovation, they actually moved the home team's tunnel. The last, I want to say, 20 foot of blacktop or brick that's down there, before you step on the Lambeau, they actually lifted that up out of the ground and moved it, so you're still walking over the same piece of ground that Green Bay Packers have walked over for the last 50 years. So, I mean, It's just every little detail about that stadium. And then when you go out there, I mean, that crowd, I mean, there's tons of very good crowds in college and in the NFL, but everything about Lambeau Field, from the drive into the stadium to the locker room to the walk down the tunnel to when you actually step foot on that field, knowing the legends that have stepped out there and played games on that field, it's just absolutely amazing. And it was a tremendous honor. I had the honor to play with some great players in Green Bay, some Hall of Famers, and to know that I was on the field as some of those legends before me, it's just every little kid's dream. It was just an absolute honor.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, one more before we let you go, and Bob and I talked about the great speech that Brett Favre gave, during his Pro Football Hall of Fame induction. Curious to get your thoughts on, what you thought of the speech and the job that Brett did, not over the course of his career, but really just that night and explaining his great career and what it was like for him.
I think he nailed it. I even go as far back to his Green Bay Packer Hall of Fame speech, which was a year ago. And I just look at these speeches, and I think it epitomizes who he was as a player, the heart that he had as a player when he talks about the different personnel people or administrative people in the stadium, to the equipment guys, to the trainers, to that's just who Brett Favre was. And I think we as players and as fans watching him, we saw his heart, the way he played the game. But then when you hear him speak like that, I truly believe he's speaking from the heart. And the way he remembers, I have trouble remembering guys' names that I liked and I was friends with and I talked to on a daily basis. And my career compared to his, it's a pin drop size career. And for him to be able to remember trainers' names and this assistant equipment room manager's name, and the way he has that knowledge and that memory and that heart, I think the speeches that he's given just sums it all up. And I think especially Packer fans and just football fans across the country, I think just ate it up and enjoyed it. And I know I enjoy it.
Indeed.
And I've listened to both of those speeches multiple times now. It's an honor to have said that I shared the locker room with him, that I played with him, and it was an honor to see him receive those accomplishments and those awards and be enshrined for life now in the Hall of Fame. So it was a great time watching that. I think the speech, he absolutely nailed it, and couldn't have done it better if he took another shot at it.
Yeah, no, I think Bob and I both agree. What a great job, and it is something that you want to sit back and take another look at, over and over again, because it's just a moving tribute. And to think about, the fact that it didn't look like he was rehearsed, it didn't look like he had any cue cards. He just got up there, and to your point, he spoke from his heart, and I think that's what we love about him. And not only a great player, but I think that's part of what we loved about him.
Exactly. He gave the speech the way he played. You never know what he's going to come up with next and what he's going to pull out of his back pocket. And I think that's why people love him on the field. And that's why I think those speeches truly are authentic and people just buy into it, because I think he's just speaking from the heart and saying what's on his mind. And people always enjoyed him playing like that. And I think it's a pleasure to hear him speak like that as well.
Mm-hmm. Bill, before we let you go, remind our listeners, how can they follow all the great things that you're doing now, both online and over social media as well?
I think I'm on just about every social media right now, from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. So any of the social medias, get out there, follow me, see what I'm doing, what I'm into. And I appreciate you guys. It's always it's an honor to be on your show. I apologize for the little mix-up tonight, but it was a great time being on again, and look forward to it in the future.
Yeah, we do as well, Bill. Thanks for taking time to be a part of the show. We look forward to catching up with you again, hopefully during the course of the season.
Absolutely. We'll talk after the Packers have quite a few wins and on the road to another successful year.
There you go. Take care, Bill. All the best to you and your family, my friend.
Sounds good.
Take care.
Thanks again, guys. Have a good night. Bye.
Thanks.
That is former Wisconsin and Green Bay Packers offensive lineman Bill Ferrario. And Bob, again, you go all the way back, show 48 now, 200 shows plus ago. It was the first time we got the opportunity to talk to Bill, and great guy, and had a great career at the University of Wisconsin, and a team that I think we're going to be hearing an awful lot from during the course of this college football season.
I think so, Chris, and you can hear the pride in his voice, and just love talking to any guy who had played in Green Bay, and I get chills just listening to them describe the experience of Lambeau. It's quite unlike any other thing, and any guy that's ever played in Green Bay, whether it be for a year or 10 or 15, they say the same thing. It's something special when you, not even just on the field, when you're in the building.
That's right. Yeah, and again, thanks to Bill for joining us. When even the fact that he was a couple minutes late, no big deal. But to your point, Bob, a guy that was on the offensive line for Brett Favre. Got to spend some time on some. I think what everybody. You don't have to be a Packers fan, right? I think we all consider Lambeau Field to be sacred ground, and the guy that had the opportunity to be there and see all of that. It's always great to get Bill as part of the show. Hopefully we get him back again, during the course of the season.
Correct.
All right, when Bob and I come back, we'll be turning on the Thursday Night Tailgate Spotlight on the Positive. Then we'll wrap up the show, and we're going to do that on the other side of these words from our friends over at Coastal Orthopedics and Kyvan Foods.
Are you suffering from chronic pain in your shoulders, hips, knees, or wrists? Tired of living life with an old injury that just won't go away? If you answered yes to either of these questions, we can help. At Coastal Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dr. Candelora and his fine staff of medical professionals will get you back on the road to recovery. Their state-of-the-art facility and attention to detail will ensure you will be enjoying life again and feeling invincible in no time. Since 1991, Dr. Candelora and Coastal Orthopedics have been specializing in joint replacement, arthritis, and osteoporosis care, as well as pediatric and adult general orthopedics. Visit us on the web, www.bone-dr.com, or call our Newport Richey office just north of Tampa at 727-848-1417. Proud sponsors of Mike Ditka's The Gridiron Greats Assistance Fund. Add great flavor to your next tailgate party with Kyvan Salsas. Former NFL tight end Reggie Kelly created these salsas for dipping chips and much more. In hot and mild flavors, Kyvan Salsas make a great marinade. They are terrific in meatloaf and are super toppers for everything from baked potatoes to scrambled eggs. It's a great ingredient to enjoy in a variety of family favorite meals. And some people say Kyvan salsa is a meal to itself. With all the possibilities, Kyvan is truly salsa with soul. Kyvan salsas are also made from natural ingredients, and they are preservative-free. So look for Kyvan, that's K-Y-V-A-N, at area Walmart stores or online. Click on the Kyvan logo on our website to check retail and online locations. More information at Kyvan82.com.
Hey, welcome back. This is Todd Washington, two-time Super Bowl champ, offensive line coach for the Baltimore Ravens, and you are listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with my boys Chris-Mascaro and bob-lazzari on the Armed Forces Radio Network. Go get them, guys.
Hey, we're back here on Thursday Night Tailgate, and we're turning on our spotlight on the Positive. Bob, who do you have for us this week?
Hey, Chris, got an interesting story here, and you've heard of him well, Jared Allen. I mean, this is a guy had an incredible NFL career, and if you go look at his record in Kansas City and Minnesota, and the guy's had about 130 sacks in his career, including 22 back in 2011. He was, if you remember, Chris, he was just unbelievable. Now, this is a guy, Chris, who had a few brushes with the law back in the middle, probably in 2003, in that area. But unlike a lot of the guys that we still read in the headlines, this guy learned from it, turned his life around, Chris, and now had played his last year last year. And now he can spend his entire time doing what he does best, and that's he has his own foundation, Chris. If you go to JaredAllen69Inc.com, he does an awful lot, Chris, for Jared Allen's Homes for Wounded Warriors. He's big, Chris, on military. I mean, this is a guy whose brother, his younger brother, and I think he also had an uncle that served in the Marines, many other relatives. But what he is really interested in doing, Chris, is finding homes for vets and building homes. I mean, he's instrumental in building homes for guys that have been come back wounded, maybe from Iraq or Afghanistan, and he makes them handicap accessible. He specializes in that part of it. And, again, it's called Jared Allen's Home for Wounded Warriors. And he established that back in 2009. But he also has done a lot of things, Chris, for the juvenile diabetes. He had a SAC diabetes program when he was playing. Been very active in that. So now he has a 4-year-old daughter, married. Again, his life is totally on track, and what he's giving back now is great. I think he's built 7 or 8 homes already, Chris. And these aren't just small type homes. They're very nice homes for guys that served our country, and what better gift is that for somebody that served us well?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic stuff, Bob. Thanks for sharing that story. Tonight, Bob, I'm going to put the spotlight on the positive on Bucs running back Peyton Barber, and our thanks to our good friend Angelo Kane for sending me this story. Peyton played 2 seasons at Auburn, but only had 10 carries for 54 yards back in 2014, so didn't get much of an opportunity in 14. But last season, he really burst onto the scene by gaining 1,017 yards and had 13 rushing touchdowns. But he surprised everyone by declaring for the draft after only that one good season. But what we learned that he did so was because he wanted to try to support his mom, who was homeless, Bob. He went undrafted, signed by the Tampa Bay Bucs, and he led the Bucs in rushing during the preseason with 99 yards, and he earned a spot on their practice squad. Now, practice squad guys earn a minimum of $6,900 a week. So if you look at that over the 17-week season, that's a little over $117,000 that he'll earn, and it's hard to know, right, what might have happened if he had come back and played another year at Auburn, had another 1,000-yard seasons. But, when your mom's homeless, you got to do what you got to do to try to help support her right now. And right now, he's gotten himself in the position to make a 6-figure salary to help support her. So we hope he gets an opportunity to play during the season and do even better, for himself and his playing career, but also, for his mom and their life and, their lives and their long-term, health, safety, prosperity, that sort of thing. So if you're looking for a kid to really, pull for this year, make it Peyton Barber of the Tampa Bay Bucs. Kudos to him for taking care of his mom and for, the tremendously hard work that he had to do. It's not easy getting a spot on an NFL roster. So particularly when you only have, kind of 1 year on your resume, and the kid worked really hard, earned himself a spot, as an undrafted free agent. That's even harder to do. But, kudos to him for getting to where he needed to get in order to help take care of his mom and give her a home and a home for the two of them so that she's not homeless. An amazing story, Bob, here for Peyton Barber, and also, great stuff from Jared Allen, obviously for our listeners around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network, the great stuff he's doing for our wounded warriors out there. 2 really great stories tonight.
Yeah, and what a great way to end the show, Chris. Uplifting, and it's all about helping in kindness, folks. It's not about scoring touchdowns all the time. It is our favorite part of the show, and Chris will attest to that.
Absolutely right, Bob. All right, my friend, it is time for us to put a bow on this episode. Our thanks again to Felix Wright, Tony Collins, Ann Jewell, Chris Miller, and Bill Ferrario for joining us tonight. And, Bob, my thanks to you for all the great job that you do every single week here on the show. One of the best parts of my week is to get to spend my Thursday nights with you, my friend.
Same here, Chris. I appreciate that. And now the fun starts with our picks and actually being able to talk about games and things like that. So we're taking a turn here, and it's always a blast. I already can't wait for next week. Hopefully, do better than Tony did. Right?
That's right. Whatever your record is, as long as it's better than Tony's, you got something to hang your hat on for the week. So
got to beat him by 1 this year. I'm out for revenge now. That's it.
There you go. All right, next week, who do we have scheduled to join us? Well, our good friend and Prairie View A&M head coach Willie Simmons is going to be back with us. Congratulations to he and his Panthers on a big opening week win over Texas Southern in their brand new stadium out there at Prairie View. So we look forward to catching up with Willie next week. Former Colts and Seahawks defensive back Nesby Glasgow going to be back with us. We'll simultaneously be joined by former Rams Pro Bowl quarterback Jim Everett and Jennifer Cadlitz, who's the quarterback of the Houston Power in the Women's Football Alliance. Jim and Jennifer, 2 of the biggest trash talkers that you're ever going to find in fantasy football, and they do so back and forth in our Thursday Night Tailgate Fantasy Football League. So goodness knows what will happen when we open the airlines to those 2. when they join us next week. So we look forward to that. And, of course, Tony Collins, he'll be here with our 5-star picks of the week to see how we did. So come back and join us again next week. I want to remind everyone, how can you follow us on social media? Well, visit us on Facebook. We have, the Thursday Night Tailgate page. You can, take a look at all of our, links to our shows on there. You can interact with us there. If you got a question for one of the guests that we're going to have on the show, let us know. We'll get it on the air for you. Plus, Bob and I both have our own Facebook pages as well. Give us a like, whether it's, like I say, on the Thursday Night Tailgate page or, on our individual pages as well. That's important to us. You can find us on Twitter. I am at CT-mascaro. Bob is at Bob_Lazzari, and the show is at TNT Podcast. Plus, you can stream or download any of our archive episodes from our website, thursday-night-tailgate.com. Plus, if you have a favorite, podcasting site or app, we're all over the place. You can find us on iHeartRadio. You can find us on TuneIn, Blog Talk Radio, Podbean, Spreaker, Stitcher, Audio Boom, Player.fm, SoundCloud. We're everywhere. So if you got a favorite app, search for us, Thursday Night Tailgate. We're probably on there, and you can stream us, wherever you're at, whether you're working out or you're walking around the mall or the grocery store or on your commute. Please check us out there. We appreciate it very much. Bob, take us home, my friend.
Okay, Chris. Thank you, sir. And our thanks also to our announcer, Joe Lajanusa, for the great job he does with our weekly intro and ads, and to James Brocato and all the guys from Painted Faces for our upcoming outro music. On behalf of myself and Chris, we thank everyone tonight for listening. We appreciate you all the most. Until next week, good night, Kevin. We miss you.